The Cats Roundtable on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
We're in the studio right now, live. We have myself, John Catsimatidis, and we have Jake Novak, and we have Ed Cox, and New York State Chairman. And, well, he heard his name. We have Judge Weinberg. He came all the way in. I've never, ever seen Judge Weinberg at 6 o'clock in the morning.
That's right. 7 is the earliest.
Well, you know,
and Eric Levine, our noted co-host on Let the Record Show, which has been bumped because of breaking news, is going to be on with us in a couple of minutes.
It only gets bumped for breaking news or bad rating.
Well, our ratings are terrific, so it's not a problem.
Okay.
That'll never happen.
So many things are happening, and Jake, you did a great job between 5 o'clock and 6 o'clock. And in the newsroom, we also have what? Is Flippin there?
Yeah, James Flippin is there.
James Flippin. Don't worry. I mean, say whatever you want to get off your chest. Make sure Flippin says it.
Sounds good, John.
All right, good. In the control booth, we have who? Elias.
Yeah. Elias is there. Bill and Tony are there.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we got a full house on a Sunday morning, 6 o'clock in the morning. And tell me, Jake, you've been reporting the news since from 5 to 6. And what the heck is going on? I mean, Iran hit Cyprus. Let me call the Greeks. They'll start picketing Iran.
It's amazing how much has broken just overnight. A lot of you may have gone to sleep last night thinking, boy, a lot's happening, but it'll be quiet overnight. It wasn't. I think that the biggest piece of breaking news is President Trump has issued a brand new warning to Iran, telling them that they're going to get hit like they've never been hit before. But I also think, John and everyone, two other pieces of news in addition to...
By the way, I'm going to interrupt you. You know why? Everybody has learned that whatever Trump says, he means.
He does.
I mean, if he says he's going to kick their butt, he means it.
Well, I hope that this would end this Democrat talking point, this liberal talking point, this whole taco thing that Trump always backs out, Trump always chickens out. I hope that this will end that ridiculous narrative. Because
now he's a warmonger.
Yeah, they'll say that
now
instead.
He's a warmonger.
That's right, Judge.
Now, I'm going to tell you something.
Even that, he's a warmonger controlled by the Jews. Mm-hmm. That's also, but they're doing this at Israel's bidding. That's also an anti-Semitic trope that's going out from Democratic precincts.
Well, we're not here to talk anti-Semitic, but it is the fact that, the Democrats used to be the most Semitic of all. I remember there was, I'm putting in my 2 cents now. I've been seeing senators, congressmen for 40 years. There was never, 20 years ago, there was never a congressman or a senator, Democratic or whatever, that didn't come in without his chief assistant coming in with him or her that wasn't Jewish from AIPAC. You guys failed. What happened? Eric Levine, you are the one that's out there working your tail off because you have been gathering together senators and congressmen or whatever. What happened to AIPAC? Why did they fail?
Well, it's not so much that AIPAC failed. It's that the Democratic Party, as we know it, has died.
But the Jews would have never allowed that 20 years ago.
Eric's right. The radical socialists took over the party. They're anti-Semitic.
Exactly.
That's what happened.
Yeah, but allowed it to happen. I remember when the Jews were tougher.
Wait, will you let Eric respond to this?
I'm going to let Eric respond.
This notion that the Jews have all the secret power, I'm going to raise at the next Elders of Zion meeting as to what happened. This myth, we're just Americans trying to exercise our First Amendment rights and petition our elected officials to advance causes that we believe in. The problem here is that the Democratic Party, as we know it, has died. And that's because you have feckless, morally bankrupt, cowardly leadership like Chuck Schumer, who has been taken over by the Democratic Socialists of America. I mean, it's like saying New York City, you failed. You elected a communist Jew hater as mayor. Well, That's because the DSA now owns the Democratic Party. I mean, I was watching some of the news coverage yesterday. Seth Moulton, who's supposedly one of the quote-unquote moderate Democrats, congressman from Massachusetts, about a month ago, he announced that he was not going to take any AIPAC money. And then I'm watching him on the show, as with Wolf Blitzer, and he makes the comment that Donald Trump, this is an illegal war because we haven't gone to Congress and gotten a declaration of war. I mean, that's nonsense. But then he goes on to say he's doing this because he's controlled by Bibi Netanyahu. This meme that Jews have the special power or that they're controlling the powers of government is really, it is one of the classic tropes of anti-Semitism, and it has seeped so deeply into the Democratic Party that supposed moderates can say these things as if they're true, and that they're just generally accepted. The problem is that anti-Semitism, being anti-Israel, or as they say, anti-Zionist, but it's really just being anti-Semitic, it is now a core value of the Democratic Party. You cannot advance to the highest levels in the Democratic Party unless you are anti-Israel, unless you show some sort of anti-Semitism. And that's really part of the problem. That's really the response to your question, John.
Well, I'm going to go one step. I'm going to go one step further. I still have some Jewish friends. One of them, his name is Jason, and I won't tell you his last name. That he used to work for us, Judge. You might remember him. That hates Trump, hates everything Trump is doing, loves the Democratic Party, loves it. I said, look what they did to my friend. And Jerry Nadler's been my friend for 45 years. He has changed a lot. He has changed a lot.
Not for the better.
Not for the better.
No,
he has changed a lot. Now, let me finish. I said to Jerry, Jerry, I love you. He asked me for a contribution. I love you, but you've been crazy. The Democratic Party used Jerry Nadler in Manhattan, and Ed Cox is GOP chairman here. The Democratic Party used Jerry Nadler in Manhattan to get rid of my longtime friend of 40 years too, Carolyn Maloney. And they used him. And Carolyn Maloney went off into the darkness. But, her daughter won. Virginia, her daughter won for city council, which is good news. And then, what did they do? Jerry Nadler, that got rid of Carolyn Maloney, the Irish girl. Now the Democrats get rid of Jerry Nadler because he's Jewish, I think.
Are there any Italians left?
Are there any Italians left? I don't know.
On Staten Island.
On Staten Island.
Yeah, but they vote Republican.
Yeah, they do.
Well, no, who's Italian in Staten Island? I mean,
do you remember the old days?
As a Democrat.
Yeah.
Sean, you remember the old days?
Democrat?
Yeah, there's a Democrat from Staten Island who was complaining about the snow removal this week. But just to push back.
So was Vito Fossella.
Yeah. Well, that's because he didn't have two IDs. That was the problem.
But, just to push back on this meme that you're all talking about.
We've got to know we have to, look, Sunday morning, we're getting it off our chest. What the heck is going on? Why don't the common sense Democrats, you, Judge, and you, Eric Levine, you have the testicles to do that.
Wait a second. He's a Republican.
Okay?
He's a card-carrying Republican.
Then I got the Judge. I was a Democrat.
The Democrat is delusional.
I was a Democrat. I was a Bill Clinton Democrat. But Bill Clinton was a great guy. I mean, And we're going to talk about that later on, how President Trump
was pro-Israel, and that's why he's have the outs on the party, because he supports Israel. That's why they hate him.
Well, so does Hillary Clinton.
Right. Well, Hillary, who I'm no fan of, I have to say on the Israel issue, has really been quite good. But that's all of a sudden also why the Democrats have turned on her. It's nothing to do with the Epstein stuff. This all started to turn because Clinton was originally very pro.
By the way, let's finish talking about the Jews and the Democratic Party, and then we're going to talk about what happened with Epstein and the stupidity of calling up President Clinton and whatever. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Jewish support for the Democrat Party has a lot to do with the fact that throughout history, Jews have often perceived the more nationalistic party or group in a nation as being hostile to them. That's not true, by the way, and it's an incorrect assumption. There was a guy named Napoleon who emancipated almost every Jew in Europe, who was the most nationalistic guy probably in history. So that's one of those things that they don't teach you in yeshiva, and I am a yeshiva graduate, so I can tell you. Luckily, I had my own education outside of that. So that's important to remember. President Trump and the Republican Party, but President Trump in particular, is the greatest friend to the Jews since Cyrus the Great. Netanyahu mentions that all the time. Cyrus the Great was the one who allowed the Jews to return to Israel over 2,000 years ago. And this is
a Persian king.
A Persian king, that's right. That's why I mentioned him. So that's indisputable, John. Just indisputable.
Well, that's good. Does that mean the current Jews in the Democratic Party better get the heck out?
It's meant that for a long time.
Josh Shapiro from Pennsylvania, get the heck out.
Josh Shapiro is the victim of the most overtly politically anti-Semitic act in American history. He was not chosen for the running mate for Kamala Harris, which was a no-brainer, simply because he was a Jew. The fact that he remains in the party, he should be ashamed of.
Are you Jewish too?
I'm a very traditional Jew, yes.
Holy cow. I mean, we got one WASP, we had Ed Cox,
that's right.
2 Jews,
that's right,
and 1 Greek here.
That's right.
And 1 Jew on the telephone. What's flipping?
Can we get a Presbyterian? Anybody? How about a Methodist?
Well, he's Presbyterian.
No, I'm Anglican.
Ed Cox.
St. Bartholomew.
Ed Cox, a true WASP. God bless him.
And he's Zoroastrians in the room. But no,
what do we have in the control booth?
That's a good question.
I'm not sure about them, but I can tell you that I'm a Christian, so I'm a Protestant. I'm going to hold it down for that wing.
All right. Okay. All right. So we got a pretty good diversification. Usually Patterson is here, and Patterson had some surgery, but he's 100% okay. Oh. Otherwise, Patterson would have had the black community here too.
But isn't David is Catholic?
Yes, he is.
Yeah. We had a Catholic.
Proving some of our best friends are Catholic.
Yeah.
Okay.
But, we had certainly, again, to push back on this meme that it was Israel or the Jews who forced this, again, I want everyone to pay attention to this breaking news overnight. The Washington Post reporting that it was Mohammed bin Salman, the de facto leader of Saudi Arabia, who pushed the hardest for this attack on Iran, calling Trump several times over the last month. Obviously, Saudi Arabia and Iran don't like each other, but the official word was they want diplomacy. But that's not what bin Salman was urging President Trump on the phone.
Well, let's also remember this, to this, continuing on this topic of the meme. In 1979, when they took over the government, the first thing they did was take American hostages for 444 days. That has nothing to do with Israel. They blew up 241 Marines in 1983 in the Marine barracks in Beirut. That had nothing to do with Israel. They blew up over 20 service members in Khobar Towers in Saudi Arabia in the late 80s. Nothing to do with Israel. They attacked the coal. Nothing to do with Israel. They're responsible for 1/3 of the dead and wounded in Afghanistan and Iraq. Nothing to do with Israel. So this garbage that Israel is the driving force behind this is nonsense. We have this ass backwards that we're fighting Israel's war. Israel is fighting our war. Israel has been at the tip of the spear of defending Western civilization and the American-led world order since October 7th. IDF forces have been dying for the United States. This is backwards, this trope. And finally, since the Iranians have been at war with us since 1979, rather than begging and scraping and appeasing this Nazi regime, we are finally fighting back. That's what this is. Donald Trump is defending Western civilization and the American-led world order, and he has our closest ally in the world side by side with us. That is what is going on. And if Israel is such a ogre, let's remember that 3 days before this war, Prime Minister Modi of India was in Israel, knowing full well that a war was about to happen. Greece, Cyprus, and Israel have created a very geostrategic relationship in the Eastern Mediterranean. Israel has recognized Somaliland in the Horn of Africa. So what you are seeing is a huge geopolitical shift in the world, where Israel is going to be at the center of it. India is going to be at the eastern front of it. Greece and Cyprus are going to be at the western section of it. Somaliland is going to be in the southern tip. And who would you rather have controlling the eastern Mediterranean and the entrance to the Red Sea and the Indian Ocean? Israel, India, Greece, and Cyprus, or Iran, Russia, and China? And so when you start,
I'd rather have Saudi Arabia, Greece, and Cyprus, and Saudi Arabia is on our side, and we work well together. It is good to have Saudi Arabia and Israel. The crap about anti-Semitism in the Muslim community, let's turn it into crap.
And by the way, don't forget Egypt, a major power there that just hasn't gotten into it yet.
Well, I think what Iran just did is it's turning the Abraham Accords into the Abraham Alliance. Because look who Iran attacked besides U.S. interests and Israel. Attacked fellow Muslim countries. So when people like Mandami say this is an attack against Muslims, that's the most ridiculous thing. Who's blowing up the airports all across the Middle East in the Sunni Arab countries but Iran? Now, if they think that's good military tactics or good politics, that's beyond me.
Folks, you're listening to a live special edition of the Cats Roundtable here. This is live, and this is a special edition. You usually hear this later in the morning. And, John, another big story over the week was these hearings in Chappaqua over the Epstein files, both Hillary and Bill Clinton.
My hometown.
And
your neighbor.
Yeah, and your neighbor.
And by the way, I'm your other neighbor.
Oh, we were here first.
Yeah, but he has a bigger house, Eric.
Listen, if Chappaqua, on a per square foot basis, I got 87 acres in Chappaqua. If Chappaqua on a per square foot basis was voting for mayor, I'd be the mayor.
Eric, we should run him.
But these hearings, first of all,
just announced the campaign.
But these hearings were close to the news media. We didn't get a live feed of these hearings. We got transcripts. We heard certain reports from there. But I wonder, do people really think these hearings were a waste of time? Was it an embarrassment? Did anyone think we were going to learn anything from any of these things?
I didn't think we were going to learn anything.
Yeah. From your legal position, Judge Weinberg?
No. I honestly didn't think we were going to learn anything because I didn't expect them to be good witnesses. They responded by saying, I don't remember, or I didn't see anything. So what are you going to get out of that? And that was to be anticipated as their testimony.
Ed Cox,
so tell me, one prosecution that has come out of all this. Just one.
Exactly right.
Yeah, there's been a graveyard of people who have lost their reputations, people like Bill Gates. Larry Summers, by the way, in the middle of last week, stepping down as a university professor, which, by the way, if you know academia, that's a lot better than being a president of a university. To be a university professor at Harvard University and to completely step down, incredible loss of his reputation. But you're right, I haven't seen a prosecution.
Yeah, and it has gummed up the Southern District, gummed up the Justice Department, and making sure every one of these transcripts, these millions of pages that have come out, that they are properly redacted in a way that protects.
And by the way, people. You saw nothing about this during the Biden years controlling the Justice Department and the FBI, and the Democrats thought they were going to get Trump on this. It turned out that most of the bodies that are being carried out are Democratic bodies.
Yeah. Eric Levine, you're saying, though, as you said earlier here on this special edition of the Cats Roundtable here on WABC Talk Radio, you were saying that it wasn't really the Epstein thing that took down Bill Clinton. It was the fact that not only is he supportive of Israel, but remember, it's Bill Clinton who goes around the country and for years has been saying, I offered everything to Arafat and he walked away. That's, you're saying that's why they hate him, because he basically says, hey, I offered everything and they didn't one piece. Right, Eric?
That's why, I agree with that. I think that's why the veneer or the support for Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton has eroded all of a sudden, and they just use the Epstein. That's why they're not protecting him for Epstein, because they resent the fact about his support for Israel. But it's an interesting point you make about in 2000 when he offered Arafat everything. This goes back, I think, to some of these kafia Nazis that we're seeing on our campuses and in the cities across the country, talking about, Israel, this genocide, which of course is a lie. Israel's an occupying power, which of course is a lie. In 1948, the UN created two countries, Israel and an Arab state. The Jews said yes, the Arabs said no. And they attacked the Israelis, tried to destroy the country, and that's what created the refugee problem that we have today. In 2000, Clinton, as you point out correctly, basically gave Arafat everything. He gave him two states. And Arafat said no. Why? Because he refused to give up the fight to destroy the state of Israel. He wanted his own state so that eventually he could still destroy Israel and only have one state. 2008, George Bush gave Mahmoud Abbas an even better deal. And he said no. Why? Because he also didn't want to end the struggle. In 2005, Ariel Sharon withdrew every Israeli, every Jew from Gaza. Gaza was Judenrein. It was free of Jews until October 7th. But what did they do? They didn't just create their own country, which they could have, and improve the lives of the Palestinian people. Hamas created a terrorist hellhole to try to destroy the state of Israel. So this notion that it is the Israelis who have prevented a two-state solution or prevented the Palestinians from having their own state and are the reasons why all these horrible things are happening, these are all just lies. They are proven historical lies. But the trope the Democratic Party is bought into, they just keep going down this rabbit hole, no matter how false the accusations are. So we have to keep coming back to pointing out the facts. That's why it's important to point out, the dead Marines, the dead Americans in Afghanistan and Iraq. And this talking about Iraq, we're now having this false narrative, that Iran, what are we going to do the day after? This is going to be like Iraq. This is nothing like Iraq. This is nothing like. First, we're not committing any troops. There are not going to be any troops on the ground. But why did the quieting of Iraq after the American invasion take so long? It happened because outside powers, like Iran in particular, did their best to try to kill Americans and make it impossible to bring peace to Iraq. That's not happening here. That is not happening here. There's not going to be this outside force to try and destabilize Iran once this regime is toppled. You have unanimity of opinion in the region, around the world, that this is a despotic, disgusting regime, and there's actually a great deal of support for what's going on. And to the extent that there were powers that might have undermined us, China and Russia, where are they?
Now
they have turned.
Let me ask you a silly
run.
question. Cyprus was a British colony, and also, Greece and Cyprus are like one country. I think they may even have the same national anthem. I'm not even sure, but I have a zillion Cypriot friends. Why did Iran attack Cyprus? Does anybody know?
Yeah.
Yes.
What?
Because they have a close alliance with Israel.
With natural gas and
but I know Cyprus. They got a close alliance with everybody.
Yeah. Well,
Cyprus almost substituted. And if anybody knows better, let me know. Cyprus almost substituted for Beirut, which was the banking capital of the world, and they lost it because nobody had testicles at the White House for the last 50 years or something, to do something about it. And they're friends with everybody. Why did they attack Cyprus?
Except for the Turks.
That's
there's a
very interesting. Raising Turkey, very interesting.
Wait. We're sitting with the guy that's quasi-responsible here, Ed Cox. and it was the Nixon administration that allowed the Turks to use NATO weapons to go in there and take half of Cyprus.
I was also director of the company that found all the gas off Israel, Noble Affiliates.
Minor detail.
And that is an important part of this whole natural gas.
Leviathan natural gas find.
And two discoveries before the Leviathan.
Mm-hmm.
Kissinger. We talk about anti-Semitism. How about anti-Cypriotism? Anti-Cypriotism. I stand up for the Cypriots. Why was Kissinger so anti-Cypriotism?
I will not answer for Henry.
Is there anybody out there that can answer that question? You see, the Jewish community is the only one that has anti-something. Is there any other community out there that has anti-something?
You mean? Like a defense league?
No. It means a historical hatred of Jews, which goes back to an age-old hatred. It's gone back hundreds, maybe thousands of years. They've always blamed the Jews. You were telling a story. Why don't you tell the people a story about what happened with the assassination of the Tsar?
Well, it's interesting that the Tsar was the Bolsheviks assassinated the Tsar, and there were a lot of Jews in the Bolshevik, but they were not the only group that was in the Bolshevik party and Bolshevik group. But they made sure, and this is something that historians know this, and the Soviets were always cagey about it, But the trigger man, the person who killed the Tsar and his wife and presumably the children, they deliberately chose a Jew to do that. Because why? The Bolsheviks knew if things went south, if they ended up losing the whole revolution, they could blame it on the Jews. His name was Joseph Yurovsky. I knew his great nephew, by the way. Very gentle person. But honestly, that is what they, and so people kind of say maybe this is what's happening here. The killing of Ali Khamenei, maybe you can blame it on the Israelis. But honestly, folks, this is a joint operation. There's no caginess going on. The strength of the alliance, which Ed Cox, your late father-in-law, really created during the Yom Kippur War, which, by the way, really told the Arab nations that no matter who the president was, but especially someone like Nixon or Trump, there was never going to be a wedge driven. When he resupplied the Israeli army in the Yom Kippur War, that was a wake-up call for Anwar Sadat.
That was a decision by the president himself. It was not Henry Kissinger. He had to say, whatever Golda wants, give it to her. Mm-hmm. Get it to her right away.
And that saves Israel.
Point, though, about who killed Khamenei.
And by the way, he also kept the Soviets out of it. They said they were going to send troops when the Arabs were on the run. What did President Nixon do? He went to DEFCON 3.
All right, we got to take a break. This is a special live edition of Cats Roundtable. We're going to be coming back with Todd Shapiro, who's going to be representing Eric Adams, our former mayor. Stay with us. We are live coverage here on Talk Radio 77 WABC.
The Cats Roundtable on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Greg Kelly here. Donate now to toysfortots.org, working year-round delivering hope to children at Christmas time and beyond. In 2024, Toys for Tots provided over 30 million toys to nearly 13 million children in need. Donate now, please. Go to toysfortots.org. Since 1947, Toys for Tots has distributed 708 million toys to 314 million deserving children. Working year-round, Toys for Tots. Donate now. Go to toysfortots.org. That's toysfortots.org.
The Cats Roundtable. Entertaining and informative. On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Jesse who?
Jesse Garcia, the vice chair of the state Republican Party.
Is that the guy that didn't get up at 6 o'clock in the morning to be with us?
Mm-hmm. That's right. This is what you're really listening to is a special edition of the Cats Roundtable.
All right. Okay. Super special edition of the Cats Roundtable. And, well, we've had some segment here, calling in. I mean, he was listening to us, and he was angry that we didn't give Eric Adams credit for being pro-Semitism. Is that a new expression? Pro-Semitism?
I've never heard that before in my entire life.
We are pro-Semitism. Okay? I'm 6% Jewish. Don't forget. You know what that means? You know,
when they round us up, you'll be in the camps with us.
One of my great-grandfathers, the definition of 6% is either a great-grandfather or great-grandmother was Jewish. So I tell all my Jewish friends, one of my great-grandfathers or grandmothers got screwed by a Jew.
Very nice. And you're pro-Semitic, huh?
I am pro-Semitic. Okay. Todd Shapiro, you were so angry you called in because you represent Mayor Eric Adams, and tell us what you feel about it.
So first of all, the former mayor just got back from Israel 2 days ago. He was there for a week and stuff like that. And, he saw a lot of stuff. He was meeting with people in the Knesset and different Jewish leaders and people from the state of Israel. Because, and now as a private citizen, I think he sees things a lot different than he did before. And he's, as you always put it, Johnny, he's mad as hell. I mean, he's looking back now. And, when he was mayor, listen, he did a lot of good things. He did a lot of maybe not so good things. But for the most part, he was a strong ally to the state of Israel. And he was a strong ally to Jewish people, to all residents, Jews, Muslims. But, he really was a voice for the Jewish people when the Gaza attacks took place. And I think what he's looking at now was the mayor, the present mayor's statement. And what he came out was not very strong. And it didn't come across. He was attacking the president of an illegal act of war. And I think just, looking at things today, I mean, I think he feels, I know he feels, that, that a mayor should be solid to the people he represents.
Now, let me ask you a question. When he was mayor, you had appointments with 90% black. Now, the blacks have been taken out of the, I guess, I haven't seen that many blacks being appointed by Zoran. Is the black community upset?
Is the black people upset? I think a lot of people are upset. Listen, understand, 50%, over 50% of people didn't vote for this mayor. It was a different population. You know, it was. I think a lot of people said it before. I mean, the people that voted, and this was an Eric Adams quote: "The people that voted used to only be on Social Security. The people voted this time were on social media."
Did Curtis vote for Zoran?
Look,
Go ahead. Eric, get it off your chest.
I'm proud to say that I supported Eric Adams. I did fundraisers for Eric Adams. I thought he was a fine mayor, and he was and is a great friend of the Jewish people and Israel. There's no question about that.
And I liked Eric Adams a great deal, too.
Yeah, and instead we've elected a communist Jew hater. And you could just see, I mean, his recent statement about opposing Iran, look, back on Iran, he supports Iran. It is part and parcel and consistent with what we were saying at the beginning of the show. This war that is continuing, it started in 1979, but what is continuing now is on one side you have the United States and Israel, and the other side you have Iran. Evil. It's good versus evil. But Zoran Mamdani, the Democratic Socialists, and people like Chuck Schumer, who are too weak to stand up to them, are siding with evil. Why? Because the two worst people on the planet, Donald Trump and the Jewish people in Israel, are on the other side.
But John brings up a good point, Eric. John brings up a good point that maybe it isn't galvanizing the Jewish community in New York to try to oppose Mamdani. Maybe it's a matter of galvanizing the African-American community in New York. It's not only the fact that a lot of African-American appointees. Yeah, but don't forget also at this Bash the Landlords event that Mamdani hosted and arranged this week, residents of New York City public housing, NYCHA, were not allowed to come in there. There was one woman who courageously stormed the mic and complained about this. The city is the biggest landlord in New York City with all these housing projects, and that is a very, very large amount of the people who are living in public housing are African Americans, and they were told they're not allowed to complain about the dangers and other squalid living conditions they have to deal with.
Fact of the matter is, what they have is they have radical socialists, maybe even communists, who are running the housing positions in this new administration. And what they want to do is they want to destroy the middle-class landlords so they can have more control of private property and real estate by these radical socialists, by the Democratic Socialists of America. Just read their agenda. It's all out there. They're against private property. To them, property is theft.
And imagine being someone who has a son or daughter in the U.S. military right now, and you're mayor of your city. Because there are a lot of American, you might think it's just a Southern thing. It's not just a red state thing. There are a lot of active duty troops from the 5 boroughs of New York City, by the way. Imagine being a father, a mother of somebody in a forward position right now for the U.S. military, particularly in the Navy, and to have your mayor condemn them by extension because he condemned the United States yesterday. That was his response to Operation Epic Fury. Maybe he should have sat this one out.
My son was a Marine. He led a mortar platoon in Syria fighting ISIS in 2018 and 2019. And when these attacks on American service members in Syria were carried out by Iran and their proxies, my son was a target. So this is a righteous war. Zoran Mamdani hates America. He hates Jews. He hates Israel. So does the entire DSA. And that's who has taken over the Democratic Party. Yeah, if I'm a service member's parent today, they don't have to be active duty. Once a Marine, always a Marine. So this is, it really is offensive. And to the point that the other guest made about over 50% of the people didn't vote for this guy, 100% right. Zoran Mamdani doesn't represent me. He doesn't represent most of the people in the.
This whole thing started with my friend who used to work with us. That's Jewish, and he's pro Mamdani.
Listen,
yeah, well, look, I mean,
there's a myth that all Jews are smart, and it's not true.
But the fact that a Jew says something stupid about Jews or Israel doesn't make it any less stupid. It's still stupid. The problem is they put their ideology ahead of their religion, their faith, and their culture. And their ideology becomes their religion, their faith, and their culture. The radical left in the Jewish community, they're lost.
Well, you've heard of Stockholm Syndrome. A lot of us understand Stockholm Syndrome. There's actually two parts to it. Everyone knows the first part, which is you're a hostage and you start to identify with your hostage state, with your captor. But actually, the more common form of Stockholm Syndrome is that the hostages turn on each other. And I think that the Jewish people for 2,000 years have been suffering from Stockholm Syndrome. We very often, sadly, turn on each other because we've been victimized for so long. And every once in a while, you get somebody who sees the victimization of Jews by a Mamdani or by someone worse like a Khamenei and says, you know what? You were asking for it. That is a version of Stockholm Syndrome, by the way, and I think we've been suffering from it.
Hold on. I got some breaking news here. Hit it. You can't find a button. What's the matter with you? You can't find a button. I know it's early Sunday morning. No button.
The Jews did it.
Breaking news, WABC.
Okay. Secretary of War Hegseth has banned all military people from attending Princeton and Columbia and other elite universities because of their wokeness and weakness.
And that's actually a significant thing. Columbia's School of General Studies, since the beginning of the Gulf War, has had something called the Yellow Ribbon Program. This is a program at Columbia where they say whatever the GI Bill doesn't cover, we will forgive in your tuition. So in other words, veterans and people who are in the U.S. military basically go to Columbia University, if they're accepted, for free. And so for them to be told they can't go there anymore because there's so much anti-Americanism at Columbia and other schools, that's pretty significant because that Yellow Ribbon Program, as a Columbia alum myself, was one of the only things I was proud of about Columbia. And I guess that's going to be, in the garbage can now.
But still, I didn't have any of my Cypriot friends call me or text me on why, first of all, the Kissinger went along with Turkey on taking over and using NATO weapons to take over northern Cyprus, and why did Iran hit the northern Cyprus or southern Cyprus?
I'm going to check. This is according to the British.
I mean, they
so
won't go against Erdogan.
Left here, take a left here.
You're moving. You're going left, Todd Shapiro.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Have you turned to be a leftist?
Oh my God! Now I'm really shocked.
But understand what's going to happen now. Now you're going to start getting all the protests in the city. It's going to turn into mayhem. You're going to start getting, and it's also getting warmer out, so you can get more people coming out. Like it did during Gaza. You're going to start seeing people in the streets protesting. I'm sure that the new mayor is going to get his groupies to come out. And they're going to start coming out, condemning Israel and attacking Israel. It's going to be, an S show as we.
I want the Cypriots to come out, and I want them to picket the United Nations and picket Iran.
How about Turkey? Why do we keep excluding Turkey? Turkey's the next big threat that we have to the United States of America and to Western civilization.
What this guy wants to be talking about. Ed Cox, tell us about Turkey. You're a member of the
Assad is out, and the people who are in we're wondering about them. At the moment, President Trump is supporting them. But one thing is clear: they are backed by Turkey. Turkey made that,
say it simply,
revolution possible.
No. You are a very smart guy. You have to say it's simple so everybody can understand it out there.
Yeah.
Are you saying that Turkey owns Syria?
Turkey has huge influence there because they supported the new rulers of Syria who kicked out Assad, just several months ago.
And who else? And they have a big influence in northern Cyprus. They own northern Cyprus, and nobody has the courage to say that you don't.
Well, I got an answer for you,
John. Call it an Ottoman complex.
Apparently, they were aimed at the British bases, which are very much on the southern coast of Cyprus. So you're right. They didn't want to mess with the northern part. Yeah.
Because Great Britain supported Trump.
Wow.
Maybe that's the reason.
Yes and no.
Wait, hold on. I want. That's not. Wait a second.
One second.
Quiet. Hold on. This is very important. Are you saying
you have to raise your hand to go on?
That's right. Yeah, nobody can see Eric. Listen, are you saying that the English supported Trump in this excursion? I don't believe so. The most tepid, ridiculous statement in the world.
Well, what was the statement?
He made it really clear. Oh, we didn't have anything to do with this.
Right, that's your first statement.
No, I thought the statement says that we're supporting the
just politically, not tactically. And they made a point of saying we didn't have anything tactically to do.
And you can't use our bases. And you can't use our bases.
Yeah, wishy-washy.
He said you can't use the bases?
Yes. Well, that was what was reported. But he made a point. Well, we didn't have anything tactically to do with this.
And by the way, if any single British person goes against that statement, they go to jail, right?
Yeah, on X. If they post on X, they're going to jail. Yeah.
In other words, there's no freedom of speech in the UK.
Eric.
That's why the F-22s were supposed to take off from the UK. But Starmer wouldn't let us use the base. So that's why we had to first fly them to Israel. That's why we had to first fly them to Israel so we could use the F-22s. But in terms, to Ed's point about Turkey and Syria, you're going to see a divided Syria. Turkey's going to be controlling certainly the north of it. The Israelis have made very clear there are to be absolutely no military assets south of Baghdad. The Israelis are going to be controlling southern Syria. The Israelis are going to be protecting the Syrian minority communities, the Alawites, the Kurds, the Druze. So that's going to be a divided country. It's going to be interesting to see if Syria can hold together. But to Richard's point, he's 100% right. Once we're done with Iran, the country we're going to have to turn our attention to in terms of supporting the Muslim Brotherhood and undermining Western civilization is going to be Turkey. We have to be careful we don't substitute a Shiite international terrorist axis led by Iran to a Sunni-led international terrorist axis led by Turkey.
Hey, so let me ask, you guys are sophisticated pro-Semites, and what Turkey? What are they? Are they still a NATO nation?
They are still NATO. Absolutely.
And should they?
Does does any NATO country trust them?
No, and we won't let them have a lot of the sophisticated technology connected to the F-35.
And just because they're friends with Putin?
No, because they were the anti-aircraft stuff. They came from Russia, and we do not want it to be able to take down an F-35.
I mean, even though who's the president? Erdogan.
Erdogan
says, "Trust me."
I trust him.
Yeah, as far as we can throw him.
Right, exactly. Look, he is the next major threat, and with this gap, this vacuum after Iran is taken care of, we better pay attention to Turkey because he has the same hegemonic ambitions as the Iranians did.
This is a special edition of the Cats Roundtable. It is live. We're getting a live, and we're going to be right back with Brian Kilmeade, who'll be joining the Cats Roundtable. Again, you're listening to Talk Radio.
He's working Sunday morning, too?
He's working, too. He woke up. The other guys didn't. Anyway, we'll be right back.
The Cats Roundtable on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Cats Roundtable, entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Well, we are back. And, I don't think we have enough fire yet.
Everything's so quiet here in the studio, yeah.
And nobody has an opinion.
By the way,
have you noticed no one has an opinion?
Todd Shapiro, how far left did he go? Did he fall off the call?
I think he went into the Hudson River.
In Hudson?
No, I'm right here.
All right.
We thought he was in witness protection.
And we have a special guest. He is the hardest working person at Fox. I think he works 18 hours a day. I think he's always there. And he's also every day, Monday through Friday, 10 o'clock to 12 o'clock on WABC. And, Brian Kilmeade, what the heck is going on? Why did Iran attack poor little Cyprus? And if they attacked anybody, they should have attacked the northern part of Cyprus where Turkey is.
Well, I mean, obviously, they're really making things worse for themselves when they go after these Arab nations, these Sunni Arab nations. They were going to stay out of it. They told us, don't use our bases, America. If you're going to attack, don't use our bases. We don't want to be a part of that. And what do? we didn't use their bases. We attacked Iran, chopped off 40 of their high-ranking officials, including the Ayatollah, and they hit back on the Arab nations. Thankfully, they haven't even gone for our aircraft carriers. And what they've done is got these Sunni nations angry at Iran. And I would not doubt that at some point that the Iranians are going to get hit by UAE, by Saudi Arabia, by Bahrain on their own, with their own military, because they've alienated them, which is a dumb move, but it shows desperation, a lack of organization. And when you mention Cyprus, that also shows they're targeting. I mean, these guys are totally discombobulated. They're not even sure what hit them and who's still alive.
Well,
there's no question they made a tactical error in attacking these Arab states, who, as Brian correctly points out, wanted to kind of stay out of this. But the idea that Saudi Arabia or the UAE, they're going to get involved militarily, I think that's highly unlikely. I think they're militarily useless. But the political cover that they're giving us is terrific. It's really important. I thought the MBS statement was great. So what you have is the Arabs, it's not just that they've aligned themselves with the United States. They've aligned themselves with the United States and Israel.
Hey, and Brian Kilmeade, besides that, is I got a bunch of tweets yesterday from a lot of my Democratic friends that they all want to go back to Washington and stop President Trump from demolishing the Ayatollah. I said, are you in the, and I had to repeat, I had to put a comment in. Is the Democratic Party on the Ayatollah side?
Yes. And it's only because, I mean, they can't think about tomorrow. Everything Trump does, they do the opposite. And now they look at this guy that has been at war with Democratic presidents, U.S. Bill Clinton, U.S. Barack Obama, U.S. Joe Biden. What is Iran? Why are they in the top of your hit list every day on your security briefing? Why are they always, there's always an issue, whether they're trying to negotiate or trying to figure out why they're taking our people, or they're fueling militias that are killing our people. Now, all of a sudden, Donald Trump decides, I've had enough. We've tried everything. I'm the one to do it. And they got to jump on the other side. And they're just waiting for anything negative to happen in this incredible campaign. They're just waiting for it. I think they're so delusional. It's like being a drunk guy at the bar, and all you want to do is just flail away. You're not even thinking about who you're trying to hit. And for Tim Kaine and people, and like Senator Mark Warner, who have been there getting high-level briefings for decades, for them to pretend as if this wasn't a brilliant move and a necessary move that other presidents shouldn't have done, shows they are flat-out lying for pure politics. And I ask you, why are they in those jobs? They're in those jobs to make an impact. No, those guys are in those jobs just to get Democrats elected and try to squeeze out Donald Trump and make sure he doesn't have a successful presidency, when their goal should be making the country better. And these guys that have been there, they know what Iran is. They know what they've done constantly to undermine us. And Israel really would not have many enemies if it wasn't for what Iran's been doing. And that's a very anti-Israel party right now.
Brian Kilmeade, this is Jake Novak. Go ahead. I'm sorry, one quick question. Speaking of that, Brian, what do you make of this absolutely extraordinary report in the Washington Post that says that it was Saudi Arabia, Mohammed bin Salman, the crown prince, who was actually making the phone calls to the White House the last several weeks, urging this attack? I mean, that is very interesting. I wonder what you make of it, because, again, it seems like Iran has proven Saudi Arabia right, because all they've done is attack other Arab countries and Israel. They haven't attacked the U.S. military.
It shows you there's a public persona and there's a real persona. You know, the first time we saw this, guys, do you remember when they, not Snowden, but the cross-dresser that changed sexes leaked all that material?
Chelsea Manning.
Chelsea Manning. So she leaks all that material. Do you know what it said? It showed these emails over to Hillary Clinton for us to hit Iran. It shows how Saudi Arabia and Iran hated each other's guts, and how Hillary Clinton has to get America to act back on their behalf. And it revealed the rivalry between these two nations, but publicly they would make us the problem. They make America the heretics. They make America the outsiders. But in reality, they were leaning on us. And that was prior to MBS taking power. Now you got this modernized leader. Yes, he's royalty, and they have horrific ways of punishing crime. But they are now thinking about their economies first. The UAE, their economies first. Qatar, their economies first. They're building up trust through economic ties, and they like Trump. So they would never have done this and counted on us and trusted us under Joe Biden and Barack Obama, who could not make up their minds. They were pro-Iran. They were trying to get that JCPOA passed. Saudi Arabia is like, are you kidding me? How can you trust Iran? And look, I know Saudi Arabia's got its issues, but you have to recognize how far they've come. And they are not a military threat. They have taken hold of the terror cells within their country, the bin Ladens and the extremists. That's not even taught in schools anymore. So they have turned the page. And it shows you what Trump is doing. And it also should curtail these complaints from Democrats, because they have to understand in the region when they're coming now against Trump, if they are ever to get back in power, these Sunni nations are noting this. And they're saying, if when Trump's gone, maybe we go back to that negative relationship with America again.
Now, let me ask you, has Saudi Arabia, one second, guys, I'm the commander, the show's called Cats and, is all the Arab nations unified with Saudi Arabia at this point, on what's going on?
I think so. I mean, it doesn't mean they don't have elements, Shia extremists amongst them. For example, our Iraqi consulate's getting hit. That, in a way, that just allows us to take the gloves off, because Iraq's been thoroughly infiltrated by Iranian militias and a lot of Iranian leaders. And now this gives Iraq the chance to get rid of that yoke. And I think we're going to start hitting them. Doesn't mean in Pakistan our consulate wasn't attacked by pro-Shia extremists. So we have elements, but I don't think governments. I can't think of a government outside Turkey that felt as though they could have good relationship with Iran. Qatar did it for survival, but because they don't have much of an army and they can't afford to alienate any side, but they can actually pay for their security, and that's what they do with us. That's what they do with Saudi Arabia, and they've had good relationship with Iran. But as far as a power, I think it's just Turkey. And notice, not a word from Russia. China's offered condemnation for the attacks, but that's lip service. This is. I know there's going to be some dicey days and hours.
Give us. We have a few more minutes for this segment. Give us your pulse on the whether it's the Muslim community, the Arab community. Who is going to be with the Khomeini gone? Is Erdogan seeking to be the big head honcho, or is it going to be Saudi Arabia? How do you see things?
I don't really see Turkey like we know Iran and Saudi Arabia are adversaries, but I don't see Turkey as necessarily an adversary to anybody in the region. They're not really friendly to the West. There's distrust there. But I think that Erdogan is more focused on Syria, their border, and they're happy with what's transpired there. Of course, the Middle East has always been tumultuous, but I really believe that there's so much upside to this operation. And in the end, this is going to be one of the great things that Donald Trump has accomplished. And to see this idiotic mayor come out with a statement in support of the Khomeini against our action, and he thinks the Iranian community in America say you're welcome here. You idiot. Most of the Iranians are here because they're not welcome there. The Ayatollah is hated by almost all American Iranians. So he's just clueless. And I just conclude with Democrats should just understand there are certain things that Donald Trump does that you can agree with. And this is one of them.
Now, one more question, Brian Kilmeade, before we go off, before we have to take a break. The situation going on, President Trump has supported President Clinton. President Clinton has supported President Trump. That this stuff going on with the nonsense of each party going against the previous presidents over nonsense versus, hey, if it's treason, you should go after a president. But over nonsense, going after presidents, how do you feel about it?
Well, Donald Trump's been very direct about his criticisms of other presidents, so I understand that.
Well, Biden is a separate situation. We got to find out someday who was really running the Biden White House.
Right. I feel much more comfortable, and I think it's great for our country when our presidents don't criticize each other. I really do. George W. Bush has done a brilliant job at that. Either way, I don't think Donald Trump is benefits by keep bringing up Joe Biden every day. And Barack Obama, and Obama's been weighing in more and more, and that doesn't help either. So I would love to stand down and show the more Bill Clinton, George H.W. Bush relationship. I think it's better for the country. They became great friends. Ford and Carter became great friends, and they had a bitter election. So I'm much more comfortable with that. And George W. Bush and Bill Clinton are great friends.
I agree. I agree 110%. Thank you. I mean, and you know what we're going to do? I just saw on my computer that Bill Clinton made a statement yesterday about his testimony. I guess if he made it, everybody who's listening, tune in at 7:02 after our break, and we're going to play Bill Clinton's statement. And Brian Kilmeade, thank you 110%.
Thanks, guys. Thanks to all of you. Talk to you soon.
God bless. And during the 7 o'clock hour, we're going to have Rabbi Potashnik, another show.
We're taking over.
We're taking over completely.
We're going to give you a bar mitzvah.
And I'm wondering if A.R. Bernard is going to call in. and well, how about Cardinal Dolan? I mean, he's good friends with the rabbi. Oh, we have to take a break? You tell me. I mean, you're the holder of the clock.
We are. You're listening to a special. We're working. If the American military is serving us, we got to be working live here on WABC. This is a live edition of Cats Roundtable. We'll be right back.
The Cats Roundtable on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Cats Roundtable on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Well, we have the rabbi with us. Is the Reb coming on?
He works today.
He works today. Wait. I think isn't Sunday a day of rest?
No, he's got his congregation.
Yeah, look,
he's got his congregation.
Exactly. We clergy, we work on weekends. We have a Sabbath, we're in the synagogue. Sunday, we're in church. And he's preaching today.
Well, the same thing happened in the Hamptons. They got Rabbi Schneier in charge of West Hampton. They got Father Alex in charge of Southampton. and they have a territory. They can't infringe on each other's territory for money.
That makes it a violation of the trust clause, a market allocation agreement.
Separation, total separation.
Total separation. Well, Rabbi, we love and admire you, and you've been a regular on WABC for about 1,000 years. Tell us, what is the feeling in the Jewish community, or what the heck is going on right now?
Well, there are a number of feelings. Firstly, today we're going to have there'll be conference calls dealing with security because there's heightened security concerns. People, are not going to stay trapped in their homes. They're going to go out. They're going to go and do things they need to do, but they have to do it safely. And thank God we have an NYPD, and thank God we have security organizations that work closely with all of us. So one of the things I urge is that every house of worship make sure that there is a security plan in place during these difficult times. Most of them do it, but sometimes there are those who need to be encouraged. Second thing is, John.
By the way, I want to tell everybody the rabbi is also the head chaplain of the FDNY, the Fire Department of the City of New York. And A.R. Bernard, along with now Cardinal Dolan, is the head chaplain for the NYPD, the New York Police Department. Is that correct?
Well, it takes two of them to do what I do.
Because you demanded twice as much.
Yeah, it's a wonderful moment for us in the sense that we are privileged to work with such people who are so selfless, ready to sacrifice their lives to save our lives. So it's a great honor. As a matter of fact, Cardinal Dolan, they are going to be sworn in this week, and I'll be attending, and others will be there because it's one of those special moments of life where you want to share with people whom you love. And one of the things, John, that all of this points out is how much we need each other, that we can't go through these challenging times alone. So thankfully we have people like you who care. It doesn't matter what the denomination is. We are different and we are the same simultaneously. So I'm grateful. I think we ought to recognize,
that's the way. By the way, that's the way I feel. I don't care if you're Chinese. I don't care if you're black. I don't care if you're green. I even accept the Martians that might be red. I mean, I love all people, and I think the best way the greatest thing people could do is sit around a round table and I can't say shoot the crap. I can say
if
that.
you look at the Bible
on a Sunday morning, maybe go ahead.
Have a bull session.
If you look at the Bible, there's no reference to color. There's no reference to that kind of difference. When God created the human family, the very beginning, you don't know what background. I mean, they were just human beings, creatures of God, and that's how we have to see each other.
And how do at 3:00 in the morning, I was watching. Besides listening to Walter, I was watching Ancient Aliens, and. Somebody built those pyramids. It wasn't the Egyptians and it wasn't the Jews. The Jews want to take credit for it because you guys are educated and you guys wrote the books. So you guys are trying to take credit that it was the Jews that built the pyramids.
We're not going back to Egypt. We're not doing that. We've had our years there, no more. But what I want to say to you, John, is on the Jewish calendar, you have Purim, which is going to be celebrated Monday night, Tuesday. And one of the things that it talks about is when Jews lived in Persia. Persia today is Iran. And Haman, a vicious hate monger, sought to destroy the Jewish people. And he ended up being destroyed. Now, how coincidental? That's divine coincidence. That the story of yesterday becomes the story of today. So you have Khomeini, who thought he was invincible, that his plan, we're going to remove Israel. We're going to take Israel off the map. You remember that famous quotation? And now he's been taken off the earth. So history sometimes does repeat itself. And in this case, thankfully, he is no longer with us.
By the way, I'm not educated in a lot of Muslim or Jewish. I just got a text from one of our favorite people. It says Mandami is a member of the 12 branch of Shia Muslims, the same as the Ayatollah. I mean, I have no clue. Do you know anything about that?
I don't know. I don't know what the story is with that. When you have social media, everybody is able to put down any story they want. But the biggest story is that we need to stand up against this. There are those who are going to defend this action or criticize Israel and America. We need to stand together because this is a threat. Iran has been a threat not just to Israel, but to America and to all people seeking freedom. Look how many people have been killed as a result of their hatred. And we have demonstrated that working together, Israel and America, the Abraham Accord nations, that we can do something. We can make a difference. We can stop this madman from carrying out his plan because they're very, very, clear as to what they want. When someone tells you, I want to destroy you, believe them. And that's what came across here. So the time has come, and finally something was done which should have been done years ago. I mean, just imagine if we had strangled Iran economically years ago, when if the countries had come together and say, we can't allow them to have the wherewithal, to have the ability to have weapons of destruction, which they had. So we're very appreciative of all the president has done, and that we're at a point now where we're calling the shots, not the other side.
And is there any other your parishioners and your people that you talk to every day? You have a lot of close friends. Are they 90%? I mean, I remember I was upset with you when you said to me that more than 50% of your friends were not going to vote for certain people.
Well,
how do you feel about it now?
The percentage was less. By the way, I was more upset. Because they're members of my community, and I want people in my community to stand up for their community. One of the things I admire about some of our leaders is they stand up for their own, and you got to stand up for others, as you mentioned earlier, but you got to stand up for your own. And when there are people who are ready to sacrifice their own, or to think they're going to somehow receive the adulation or the adoration of others by standing up for others but ignoring their own, they're sorely mistaken. So unfortunately, there are those who vote against their own interest, and we have to call them out. You can't hide that. You can't make excuses for it. But it's an unfortunate, fact.
Rabbi, it's Richard Weinberg. Good to talk to you early in the morning. Let me ask you this question: what did Hillel say? The great Jewish thinker say. You
mean if I'm only for myself, who am I? If I'm for others.
Where's Eric Levine? Maybe he can help you on this.
If I am not for myself, who will be for me? If I am only for myself, who am I? And if not now, when?
Yeah. And how true is it? But what is he saying?
It shows you Weinberg doesn't go to the synagogue enough.
That's why I need Levine and Potasnik to help me out.
I've seen his attendance record. I know. Well
you know why? If you guys didn't charge so much for the seat, I guarantee Weinberg would come more often.
That's right. If I could get a raise in this place, maybe I'd afford the seat.
He's a judge who, we give him an accommodation. But look, I think that statement by Hillel and religious tradition of all the different groups says to us, stand up for your own and stand up for others, and there's no contradiction. But there are those who feel somehow that they can stand against their own and win the approval of others. How well does that work out? It doesn't.
Rabbi, this is Jake Novak. Let's get to something more serious.
Another one of your people.
Yeah.
By the way, not only one of my people, but I'm privileged to know his father, who's a great rabbi.
Wow.
Yeah, Rabbi, I have to ask you.
No wonder he's growing a beard.
In all seriousness, you mentioned the holiday of Purim, which is a major Jewish holiday, and you talked about security concerns. This is a night when not only do Jews go to the synagogue, but they sometimes are dancing outside in the streets. This is a very child-centered holiday, and I just got a report that a missile impact in Beit Shemesh, which is in the southern aspect of Israel, a child was seriously injured. Not in a Purim celebration, but so what have you heard about some of the security precautions? What should people going to the services know before they venture out tomorrow night? Because that's important.
There's going to be a call today at 5:00 with Community Security Services and Community Security Initiative, two organizations that do great work. It's going to be a call all around New York, and people are going to listen and learn as to what precautionary measures should be taken. I would say, that you got to be inside. You have to have a plan. You can't just be walking around outside. And do whatever you're going to do with the guidance of NYPD or some security firm that you're working with. But you're right. When you have a celebration, I heard yesterday somebody criticized the UN, said, you attacked us on Ramadan, or was it one of our American members of Congress said, what a disgrace to attack on Ramadan? Over the years, there have been attacks against Jews on Jewish holidays. I think back to the Yom Kippur War. Anytime they feel people are vulnerable, that's when they attack. So people need to be extra careful.
Rabbi, the Iranians were killing their own people during Ramadan. So give me a break with that hypocrisy.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, and Ramadan is a month long. So you get a month off.
Let me ask you this. How is it, and Eric, I think you've spoken about this, how is it when there have been attacks on Muslims in Iran by the government, you don't see protests on the street? When there are attacks when missiles fell on Israel some time ago, perpetrated by Iran, you don't see protests on the street. And yet when Israel seeks to defend itself, all of a sudden there's this loud gathering to say Israel is wrong.
Eric Levine, I want you to answer that question right when we come back from break. We have to take a break, but Eric Levine will answer the rabbi's question.
We still haven't played the Bill Clinton.
We got to do that too. We're going to do it when we come right back. This is a live edition of the Cats Roundtable here on 77 WABC.
The Cats Roundtable on the Red Apple Podcast Network. Cats Roundtable, entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Well, today it's the Cats and the Rabbi because A.R. Bernard did not wake up early enough.
Understand something. You have Weinberg, Levine, and Novak
I mean, I'm outnumbered. I got Ed Cox on my side, my former in-law.
All right, but you're outnumbered, right?
Yes.
The Jews are in control there today.
Absolutely.
So let's go right to Eric Levine because we got a tight segment here. Eric, answer the rabbi's question about those trends that he was talking about.
Yeah, because the question about why they were protesting when Israel defends itself in an existential war for its existence, but there's no protests in the streets when the Iranians are slaughtering their own people, when the Arabs, kill their own people. The long and the short of it is, when you had the kafir Nazis at Colombia and across our country and cities around the country, had nothing to do with whether or not they supported the Palestinians. They could care less. It's about the Jews. It's about who your enemy is. It's about destroying the Jewish state of Israel. So if Iranians are killed, who cares? Even if Palestinians are killed by Syrians or their fellow Arabs, who cares? It's when the Jews stand up. The worst that happens is when a Jew is attacked, there's people wring their hands. Oh, it's terrible. Jews are attacked. Jews dead. Oh, sorry.
Wait. The Cypriots and the Greeks were attacked today. The Cypriots were attacked.
Cypriots.
And I haven't seen any Cypriots pass. I haven't seen any Cypriots or Greeks picketing.
What about all the Christians who killed in the Middle East? Anybody? How about that?
Nigeria. Look at the Christians killed in Nigeria. You didn't see demonstrations in the street.
And nobody cares. But the crime that is unforgivable is the Jew that defends himself. And Israel is the avatar of that, is the example of that. So that's why. So when Israel stands up and defends itself and defends world Jewry, that is an unforgivable sin. And that is why you're seeing these protests in the street.
And there's a protest right now. Breaking news, Eric. We have anti-war protesters. That's what they're calling themselves. They're just anti-American and anti-Semites.
He's supposed to hit breaking news first.
Yeah, hit me some breaking news.
What happened?
Breaking news. WABC.
He found the button.
He found it that time. That's the breaking news. No, but the breaking news is, at this moment, we have protesters hitting the U.S. and Israeli embassies in Athens. So it's gone from Cyprus to mainland Greece now.
They're anti-Greek.
They're anti-American there, I guess. They're against but I think this is an AstroTurf type of thing. But we only have a couple more minutes in the segment, and we would promise the listeners that we would hear from Bill Clinton, a philo-Semite, a pro-Semite, because he had a statement about his testimony and his wife's testimony in the Epstein files hearings in Chappaqua. Let's hear what Bill Clinton had to say, because we want to talk about it.
Control booth is not working.
Can we get Bill Clinton?
Trying to
Get him on the phone.
That's John. Just pick up the phone. He'll take your call.
Just pick up the phone and call him.
Well, he texted me already. Well, I guess we have a problem in the control booth. It's Sunday morning.
Yeah, Bill Clinton, usually not at a loss for words, but there we go.
Never lost for words.
He's one of the best orators I've ever seen.
Except for the Democrat convention.
In 88. But he learned from that. Oh, here we go. Here's Bill Clinton.
Here we go.
I did it for two reasons. First, I love my country, including our Constitution. And America was built on the idea that no person is above the law, even presidents, especially presidents, and that we should all live under the same set of rules. This kind of democracy requires every person to play their part. And I hope that by being there today, we can bring ourselves just a little further away from the brink and back to being a country where we can disagree civilly and we can search for truth and justice, and that it outweighs the partisan urge to score points and create spectacle. The second reason I was there is that the girls and women whose lives Jeffrey Epstein destroyed deserve not just justice, but healing. They've been waiting too long for both. Though my brief acquaintance with Epstein ended years before his crimes came to light, and though I never witnessed during our limited interactions any indication with what was truly going on, I offered the little I do know in the hopes that it would help prevent anything like this from ever happening again. I also have to say something personal. Republicans made Hillary testify yesterday, and she had nothing to do with Jeffrey Epstein, nothing. She has no memory of ever even meeting him. She neither traveled with him nor visited any of his properties. So whether 10 people or 10,000 people were subpoenaed, including her, was simply not right. So here's what I told the committee. First, I had no idea of the crimes Epstein was committing. No matter how many photos they show of me, I have two things that at the end of the day matter far more than any interpretation of 20-year-old photos. I know what I saw, and more importantly, what I didn't see. And I know what I did, and more importantly, what I didn't do. I saw nothing and I did nothing wrong. As someone who grew up in a home with domestic violence, not only would I not have flown on his plane if I had any inkling of what he was doing, I would have turned him in myself and led the call for justice for his crimes, not the sweetheart deal that we got. But even with 20/20 hindsight, I saw nothing that ever gave me real pause. We're only here today because Epstein hid it from everyone so well for so long. And by the time it came to light with his 2008 guilty plea, I had long stopped associating with him. When the video of my testimony today is released, I hope it will motivate everyone to go in front of Congress to say what they know.
The Cats Roundtable on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Cats Roundtable, entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Well, this is the cats and the Potasnik. I mean, there's cats in the rabbi, you know, and everybody else in the room. Now, I want to know, we interrupted the former president of the United States. How many more minutes were left on the audio?
We got the full statement. We got the full statement. So he's saying we got the full statement. We didn't cut him off. We just went right to break after he finished.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Let's play back the last two minutes, so that way we can talk about it.
All right. You want to play back just the last? Okay, we'll get that up as we're waiting.
And I just got my friends at British intelligence gave me their lowdown on what happened with Cyprus.
Yeah, and I thought that was a wishy-washy statement. So we've been asking, I mean, I broke the news at between 5 and 6 a.m. that Iran had fired 2 missiles towards Cyprus.
I was listening. I heard you.
Extending the war into Europe, which is very scary. And you just got a statement from British intelligence. Basically, I thought that was kind of wishy-washy, saying, oh, it probably was a mistake. It sounded like they were trying to say. I don't know about that, John.
That's the way British are.
Yeah, I think that they're trying to
stiff upper lip. Look at wait, do I go to jail if I go to London? Or if I say the wishy-washy Prime Minister of England said?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, Keir Starmer. I mean, we see all those videos of people who post something on social media, not inciting riots, but just something they don't like.
Are we ready for the last 2 minutes?
All right, let's listen to the Clinton again.
The last 2 minutes of Bill Clinton's, which I thought I had tears in my eyes. I mean, you look, I helped run Bill Clinton's stuff, and I love the guy. Go ahead, hit it.
I also have to say something personal. Republicans made Hillary testify yesterday. And she had nothing to do with Jeffrey Epstein. Nothing. She has no memory of ever even meeting him. She neither traveled with him nor visited any of his properties. So whether 10 people or 10,000 people were subpoenaed, including her, was simply not right. So here's what I told the committee. First, I had no idea of the crimes Epstein was committing. No matter how many photos they show of me, I have two things that at the end of the day matter far more than any interpretation of 20-year-old photos. I know what I saw, and more importantly, what I didn't see. And I know what I did, and more importantly, what I didn't do. I saw nothing and I did nothing wrong. As someone who grew up in a home with domestic violence, not only would I not have flown on his plane if I had any inkling of what he was doing, I would have turned him in myself and led the call for justice for his crimes, not the sweetheart deal that we got. But even with 20/20 hindsight, I saw nothing that ever gave me real pause. We're only here today because Epstein hid it from everyone so well for so long. And by the time it came to light with his 2008 guilty plea, I had long stopped associating with him. When the video of my testimony today is released, I hope it will motivate everyone to go in front of Congress to say what they know. I hope it will motivate the Justice Department to finally release all the files and to ensure that this never happens again. This deserves that.
Is that it? Well, Rabbi, I mean, the show is your name is on this show. Tell me how you feel about that.
Look, I don't think you have to consult any Bible to know that what happened on Epstein Island was wrong. And there should be a complete disclosure of what transpired, all the people who were there. I know there are those who want biblical references, tell us this is wrong. You don't need that. There's no commandment in the Bible you don't kill your brother. Because Cain could say when he killed Abel, I didn't know it was wrong to kill my brother. And the answer is you don't need a commandment to tell you it's wrong to kill your brother. What Epstein did was horrendous. It has to be denounced by all people. And those who were there and did see what was going on should be punished for it. So let's stop making, distinctions here. It's wrong. It's just wrong for no matter what your perspective is. There's no justification. There's no moral justification. That's for sure.
All right. Anybody else want to make any comments before I make a comment?
Yeah.
Go ahead. Who's that? Tell us your name. We don't know who the heck you are.
That's Eric Levine.
I know it's Eric Levine, but he has to say it. Go ahead, Eric.
Yes. Yeah, so one of the great ironies here is there's no evidence that Bill Clinton did anything wrong vis-a-vis Epstein. You have these pictures, but that's far from conclusive about anything. However, let's recall, Bill Clinton is one of the great sexual predators of all time.
Oh, my
There's
God.
no question that that's true. And that Hillary Clinton ran cover for him for years. He's also a convicted felon. He's he was convicted of perjury.
I'm going to shut this guy off. Forget about it. We're not here to,
I understand, but this comes back to my other point. When he was doing all this, he got great cover for all this. It wasn't until the party shifted to becoming anti-Semitic and anti-Israel that Bill Clinton now lost this cover and people have abandoned him. Because certainly here's something he hasn't done anything wrong and people are prepared to throw him to the wolves. But when he did do things wrong, people did everything they could to cover up for him.
All right. But bottom line is I don't think we should be a third world country and go after our previous presidents unless it was treason.
I agree with that 100%.
Okay? If it was treason, let's go after them big time. And let's talk about the Democratic Party then with Joe Biden.
I want to know.
He gave away $85 billion worth of equipment to Afghanistan that they're using right now. Is that treason?
Well, I don't think it. Look, I don't think it.
I want to know if that's treason or not.
Treason, and I don't think Obama giving all the pockets of money to Iran is treason.
He gave away. How much money did President Obama give on his last day in office? Was it on his last day in office? A pallets worth of cash. And they insisted, and the reason he gave Swiss francs, British pounds, is it?
And euros.
And euros is because if he gave American cash, he would have to disclose it to Congress. So he gave that money away purposely. I just want to say it again. He gave away purposely
to evade that
euros, francs, whatever it was, Swiss francs. Because he didn't want to disclose that he was giving it, and he didn't want to tell Congress. Is that Eric Levine? You're a fine lawyer. You're all fine lawyers. Me, I'm a college dropout. What the heck do I know? Eric Levine, you go first. Ed Cox, you're another fine lawyer. The judge, you're a fine lawyer. How do you feel about what he purposely did that so he doesn't have to disclose it?
Look, I think Barack Obama is the worst president in the history of the country. Period. End of sentence. All we're seeing right now with what's going on with Iran, and the reason Iran became a regional power is because Barack Obama's JCPOA. The JCPOA gave Iran a legal path to a nuclear weapon. That's why these Democrats saying, we want those carefree halcyon days of the JCPOA to control the nuclear program. That's garbage. The JCPOA gave them a legal path to a nuclear weapon. It gave them a legal path to a ballistic missile system. And to your question now, John, it gave them over $115 billion in sanctions relief so that they can fund their international terrorist network and the IRGC and their hegemonic goals in the region. So when the Democrats say, "Oh, we really need to go back to the JCPOA to control the nuclear program," no, this is what made Iran what it is today. That now has to be destroyed. But treason is a very narrow, well-defined crime. This is not treason.
In my heart, I thought it was treason. Okay, in my heart.
Stupidity. It's certainly stupidity. But what you have is what motivated Obama. Obama wanted to shift American foreign policy in the Middle East.
I was talking about Biden.
No, Biden. Listen, Biden is a whole different story. I think Biden, with respect to not enforcing the border law and protecting this country and flying people in illegally.
What people are saying that the reason that China had the proof of what his son was doing, and that was the reason Biden did what he did.
And there's no question, and I think that's a crime that should be investigated. The Hunter Biden story is much broader than has ever really been truly investigated. And the catastrophic surrender in Afghanistan, John, to your point, is you can draw a direct line from that to the invasion of Ukraine and the appeasement of Iran and the JCPOA. You can draw a direct line from that to the October 7th attack. And now you're seeing the response to all of this. But is it treason? I don't think the catastrophic surrender in Afghanistan is treason. I think it's colossally stupid and grotesque and warranted, impeachment. But it's not treason. And Hunter Biden, as I said, I think there's a lot more to that story regarding the influence peddling relating to Joe Biden. But at this point, I think we can all agree the guy's non-compos mentis. I don't think the question is when he started to become non-compos mentis. Now, it may be treason that the people who were running the country without power, that may constitute.
Okay, hold on. We got some before we take we're going to have to take a break. We got some breaking news before the break.
Breaking news.
We've been talking here on Cats Roundtable how there hasn't yet been a mass casualty event from these Iranian retaliations, but we're close to it here. This is the worst one I've seen as far as people dead. In Israel, in the town of Beit Shemesh, which is in the southern part of Israel, 4 now have been killed, 20 others injured in that attack. So we did have one woman who was killed in an attack before. That was yesterday. And we've seen some injuries in other attacks into some of the Arab countries as well. But 4 dead in an Iranian missile attack on the town of Beit Shemesh in Israel. And, of course, this will probably lead to more awareness from the Israeli Defense Forces as they try to intercept all these missiles. Once again, it should be noted, there has not been any retaliation against U.S. or Israeli military targets currently attacking the homeland of Iran because they have no ability to do so. That's the breaking news. We're going to be right back with this live special version of the Cats Roundtable on 77 Talk Radio WABC. Keep it right here.
The Cats Roundtable on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Cats Roundtable on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Well, we are back. And I lost track. Where the heck are we?
We're at 7:48, a special live edition of the Cats Roundtable.
Well, I know, but what were we talking about before we went on break?
Well, this would be good for
Eric Levine has to get off at 8 o'clock. He has to go someplace special. And the synagogue. But it's Sunday.
We have services.
3 times a day.
We work every day. We pray every day.
When you pay on Saturdays, do you have to pay Sunday extra?
Discount.
No money on Saturday. No money.
Yeah.
Well, we were going to go. We heard Eric Levine.
Iran became this nuclear threat, not only because of Obama, because of all the countries that traded with Iran over the years and made them powerful. And I think everyone has to look back and say there's a lot of guilt over here for a lot of people, not just one. Not that anyone should be absolved, but everybody should look very carefully at how we got to this place so that we don't do it again.
But Rabbi, your response to this breaking news we just had, and also Eric, this 4 dead. Now, this is the biggest casualty number we've seen yet from any Iranian retaliation.
What country was it in?
So this was in Israel, in the city of Beit Shemesh. Yeah, so 4 dead, including a child, I believe.
Yeah. And a number of people emigrate from America who want to live in Israel go to Beit Shemesh. It's a very popular destination place for people to live.
So likely that there were some dual citizens there. And Ed Cox just saying, what's the common denominator here, Ed Cox?
Ed
Cox.
Yeah, I mean, they're going after civilian targets. Mm-hmm. Soft targets.
Because they're cowards.
Yeah.
They're cowards, total cowards.
And so also turned all the Arab countries, the Emirates, the Qatar, they said, you can't use our bases to attack Iran. It's turned them completely.
Yeah, but by the way, we were talking off. What's the story with the British Defense Forces saying that these attack against Cyprus wasn't really directed, it just happened to be coincidental? What is that about?
Weak tea. Imagine you're a soldier in the British Armed Forces. Clearly your bases were targeted by Iran in this attack. And your British intelligence official report sounds like they're talking like they were a 5-year-old child. They didn't mean it. They're sprawling around. They're having a temper tantrum. I mean, I would resign my commission if I were in the British Armed Forces.
This is what American armed service members were facing in Iraq and Syria under the Biden administration. Mm-hmm. There were over 200 attacks by Iran and their proxies against American service members in Iraq and Syria, to which we never responded. So what's the message there? But in terms of these recent, the attack in Israel killing 4 civilians, once again, Israelis are dying for Western civilization. But I think this also speaks to a broader point, because we talk about the Democrats. Look, Tucker Carlson, and the alt-right in the Republican Party, they're talking about how we should not attack Iran, because if we do, it's un-American, or how it is, I don't know, but it's un-American, and it will lead to full-scale war and tens of thousands of American deaths. Of course, that's a lie. It's all made up. It's all nonsense. And this just speaks to that. So I think the alt-right needs to be called out on this as well. And there's a reason why they're not attacking American military targets. They just can't.
Ed Cox, you wanted to finish your thought.
Yeah, well, there's a myth in Iran that the British are behind everything. It's a traditional myth, and the Ayatollahs, I think, were playing off that. But all it does is turn the Brits against them, and the Brits again weren't let us to use their bases. This might change their view.
The Brits haven't been strong since the strong days of James Bond, so let's be clear about that.
Well,
it's still a myth in Iran.
Under Keir Starmer, who is once again now on a very, very weak footing right now as Prime Minister. I thought he wouldn't last 6 months. He's lasted longer than I thought, more than a year. But he's on weak footing again because of a number of issues. By the way, because of the Epstein scandal, that's been an issue.
Yeah, Mendelsohn.
He lost one of his his top people in his government. So over this scandal, he's on a weak position right now. But the fact is, of course, Ed Cox, of course, Iran meant to strike British assets in Cyprus, which is why are we talking so much about this? Because not only are we've just found it here on the live version of the Cats Roundtable, the first chapter of the Cypriot Defense League. We are now defending the Cypriots when no one else will. But we're also saying it because
are
it's
anti-Cypriot.
That's right. They're anti-Cypriot. This is the Anti-Cypriot Defamation League, ACDL.
Are they picketing Greece, you said, too?
Well, no. Unfortunately, people in Greece, probably migrants and who are in Athens, are picketing the U.S. and Israeli embassies in Athens. I'll bet that there's not a lot of native-born Greeks at those protests. I put money on it.
I wouldn't bet on it yet.
No, you know better than I do.
You're probably right.
Yeah, you know better than I do, John.
And Judge, you have anything to say about this? I mean, and Ed Cox too.
They should. What the Iranians probably were aiming at, but they missed, was the oil and gas assets of Israel off the coast, and the Cypriots joined. But they happened to hit Cyprus instead.
And by the way, that death toll now in Beit Shemesh up to 6. So this is the biggest death toll event that we've had from the Iranian retaliation.
The question I want to ask is, when we were doing Katz and Cosby during the week, and we had the counterpoint between different people, said we should hold back because we don't know what's going to happen next. So I want to ask the rabbi and Eric and everyone in studio, what is next? You couldn't not act because of the concern about what is next, because this is an existential threat to Western civilization, and you had to take these people out. If you don't take these people out, it wasn't a question of if we'd ever have to fight them, but when, and how strong they would be, and how strong we would be. The question is, what happens next? Does anybody have a strong view about what happens next?
Rabbi.
Look, Judge, you know, and I think Eric is well aware, there's a well-known Jewish directive. If someone is seeking to destroy you, make sure you destroy that person first. We don't have to turn the other cheek. We're not allowed to turn the other cheek. You have to make sure you protect yourself. So I think you'll find that Israel, America, this is the war of the decent against the indecent. And I think you're going to see this coalition of decent standing together, making sure that Iran is totally immobilized, that these hate mongers, these despots are removed from the earth, and that we don't see this again. So I think that's the response. We can't look the other way. We can't close our eyes when someone seeks to destroy. Listen to what was said yesterday at the United Nations by Danny Danon, the ambassador to the UN, and also the Ambassador Waltz. Those statements were excellent in terms of the need to respond to this hatred.
I'll give you the last word, Eric Levine, because we're coming up against a hard break. What's next?
Yeah, well, I'd make this observation. The only reason these attacks back in June and currently have been so incredibly successful is because the intelligence that we have from the Israelis, the Azerbaijanis, the CIA has been extraordinary. It's obviously at the absolute highest levels of the Iranian government, both militarily and politically. That's the only way you can get this kind of intelligence. So I would not be surprised if there's already in the works some sort of shadow government being put together, because you could not have had this level of success without people on the inside working here. So it wouldn't be surprising to me if in the relatively near future you start seeing the military turning on the regime and certain people coming to the fore to pick up the mantle and to end the regime and bring it back to the real world.
Well, you've been listening to, we are still continuing our coverage here on this very special live rolling version of the Cats Roundtable here. And again,
and we are going to probably do a special edition of the Cats Roundtable in the next hour and talk to some of the people calling in, but not all of them.
Yeah, I mean, this is a special edition. Obviously, day 2 of Operation Epic Fury. A lot of breaking news to get you updated on what's been happening in that operation since you probably went to bed. A lot has happened. We're going to get you re-updated on all those things. Just to recap the top 2 or 3 things, President Trump reiterating a new warning to Iran. Iran has started to continue to retaliate against civilian targets. And sadly, the biggest civilian casualty number we have seen so far from the Iranian retaliation, they did hit the city of Beit Shemesh in Israel. 6 people dead, more than 20 injured so far. That is the latest there. Again, you have been listening to, and will continue with this special live edition of the Cats Roundtable, live from New York. This is where you need to stay for all the immediate analysis, but also all the breaking news. Operation Epic Fury, day 2.
Thank you, Rabbi Potasnik. Thank you, Eric Levine.
The Cats Roundtable on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Cats Roundtable, entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Big Novak in for John Catsimatidis, who is with us in the studio, just taking an administrative consultation with our chief of operations, Chad Lopez. John, this is a special edition of the Cats Roundtable because it's live. Roundtable.
When all the people who are calling in are not going to be able to call in. But we're going to take some call-ins. But meanwhile, what the heck was going on?
Well, I just give you again.
Any super updates?
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest update is that we are seeing the biggest casualty event from these Iranian retaliations against civilian targets. It should be noted they have no ability to fire against U.S. assets, the U.S. jets, the U.S. naval ships, the Israeli jets. They have no homeland security, frankly. So what their entire military has always been about is attacking civilian targets in the region. And sadly, we have heard now what I believe is the biggest casualty event of all the Iranian retaliations. The town of Beit Shemesh in Israel, not far from Jerusalem, has been hit with a missile attack. 6 people dead there. That death toll has been rising over the last hour, 20 injured. Beit Shemesh is not a strategic location. It's not like Jerusalem or Tel Aviv. May not have had the kind of defenses that other cities have. So this is certainly what Iran has been doing. But notably, we should be saying, while all this has been happening, John, massive Israeli and American strikes have been continuing since 8 p.m. last night in day 2 of Operation Epic Fury with no resistance. We have not heard of one casualty of an American soldier or sailor or aviator, and the same is true of Israeli defense forces. So that, I think, John, is a major story.
I mean, with all the threats that Iran is making, is it? I remember who was the old foreign minister of Iran that never told the truth in his life? Do you remember that guy?
Oh, but you're talking about he was with a J was his name. He's still around there.
Hey, call him Baghdad Bob.
Well, that's the Iraqi guy.
Baghdad Bob. The tanks were there, and he's saying everything is fine. It's kind of like during the Black Lives Matter and Antifa riots, they said it's a mostly peaceful demonstration.
Yeah, but maybe you're thinking, Baghdad Bob, who they eventually did. We did get him, and I think we got him alive, actually. I mean, put him on trial. All joking aside, these kinds of guys who make these ridiculous statements that everything's fine, they're very often very much involved in some of the worst crimes of their regimes. It's not like they're just not like an anchorman in South Dakota where they just give him a script and he reads what's on the prompter. This is these people are usually intimately involved with what's going on. But Iran did threaten massive retaliations today, but really even they aren't saying they're going to hit U.S. forces. They know they're just going to hit civilians. And this is really the reason why you have to do this. And I'll say one last thing, John. People can debate whether or not you have this attack on Iran or not. Everyone has a right for their opinion there, but you don't have a right to your own facts. To say that this is an unprovoked attack by the U.S. against Iran, when Iran has been at war with the United States for 47 years. There are a lot of people listening right now who probably had friends and comrades murdered by Iran since 1979. And I got to say, their souls are crying out to you if you say that this was unprovoked.
There was a whole history of their warfare against the United States of America and against Western civilization. And it was just a question of if and when we would confront that and do the right thing to protect Western civilization. And I'm very deeply troubled by the response of France and Great Britain in the face of this attack. They've been overwhelmed by this immigration from Islamic countries, and they have a lot of Islamists, not Muslims, but Islamists in their own borders who become a political force, and it's made them weak-kneed and have no moral courage. And I'm talking about France, I'm talking about England. They haven't done the right thing to protect their own civilizations. And at least with Israel and the United States, they're fighting to protect Western civilization.
President Trump said it last night in his address to the nation. I think this was the most important part of his address. He said, quote, "We can't take it anymore." Sometimes you can say, well, America's this huge world power. It's terrible when certain people are killed or attacked, but they can't go into full-scale war every single time. Well, maybe I can understand some of that argument. But 47 years of bodies on top of bodies, blood and treasure being spilled because of Iran, and President Trump made the executive decision that there was no more just accepting this anymore. There was no more, hey, we'll just have one attack like we did last summer with Operation Midnight Hammer. We have to topple this regime.
When people say death to America, take them seriously. Don't ignore it. And they've been saying that for 47 years. Every day, every week, they're chanting in the streets of Iran, led by Ayatollahs and the mullahs and the Islamic Revolutionary Guard, death to America, death to Israel. And if you ignore it, you ignore it at your own peril. How suicidal are these crazy people in the United States who support these Islamist fascists? How stupid are they? Because they think they're going to be spared if they have a citadel here in the United States?
Yeah.
The problem it was that they were approaching the point of a nuclear breakout where they would have a nuclear weapon, that they had missiles, that 150,000 missiles that the Hezbollah were aiming at Israel. Fortunately, Israel managed to take care of them, but it's getting to a point where they could actually do something about what they were saying, and that's why the president had to act. Now, Obama should have acted sooner. He certainly should have. He could have, but that was not
by the way,
not part of his administration.
CBS just put out breaking news, the same news that WABC radio reported a half hour ago that 6 people died.
Yeah, they're just getting to it. Listen, you're going to get the latest updates.
They're getting to it. But by the way, I understand the president of the Sergeants Union. There's so many problems going on in New York with the police department and the mayor, and then I think the commissioner Jessica Tisch is arguing with the mayor. I don't know what's going on, but let's see what the sergeant has to say. Sunday morning. Well, the quality of life in New York, well, it's not negotiable. With us today is Sergeant Vincent Valalong, and he is the president of the largest police supervisory union in the country, in New York City, the Sergeants Union. And, Sergeant Vince, President, what should I call you, Sergeant or President?
You can call me Vinny.
Vinny, tell us what the heck is going on. I met a lot of people this week, and I told them the one thing that is not negotiable is the quality of life in New York. This was disgraceful. What happened with the snowballs and all the other things. You tell us what the heck is going on.
I can tell you that with this administration that has taken over now, that if they do not change course, that moving forward, when things get warmer in this city, the quality of life is going to get a lot worse, and that is coming from experience. I've been doing this for 36 years now, and I've been a supervisor for 30 of those 36 years, and I've seen a lot in the city. I worked in the city. I have family members that have been part of law enforcement. They let these weren't kids, as was just shown. We just had an arrest. One of the 4 people that they identified, individual is 27 years old. He was brought in for a attempted robbery on a train station back in February. Why he's out right now, I have absolutely no clue. But the degradation of what took place in Washington Square Park and what happened to these cops inside that park is just going to expand when you have a mayor that sits back and frivolously looks at these things and paints them as being a children's snowball fight, which it clearly was not. He could sit down with me any day in my office and look over these videos, and I will actually point out what crimes are. So, because maybe he doesn't have anybody inside of his office in order to tell him, what right and what wrong actually is.
Well, isn't a fight is something that is both ways. It wasn't a two-way fight. It was only a one-way slugfest with them throwing, whatever it was, snowballs with rocks in them or whatever it was.
They were ice blocks, a lot of them. And I remember when I was a young cop being on Avenue C and Avenue D in Lower Manhattan, and that was when it was all abandoned, when there was no buildings that were built up there. And I remember on snowy nights having snowball fights with the kids. That's a different story. Like that's like a community outreach. This was lawlessness. All right, this was done in order to promote an event that was put online to have everybody show up to. And they were looking for an outcome in order to support what it is that they do, and it really is lawlessness. There is no other way to describe this. It wasn't a group of kids. It was a mob, is what it was, and they were disrespectful. They were assaulting the police officers. How it is that you have an individual in this mayor that he refuses to call an assault an assault, and he's using every word under the sun to say exactly what it is. But then again, you know what? It seems as if we all knew he campaigned on that to begin with.
Well, I hope that what I said on television last week, I said he's a smart guy. He's a very smart guy, and I hope he learns from mistakes.
It's very easy to turn around tomorrow and say, you know what? Now we're looking at everything that happened and getting a real bird's eye view of this. Yes, you know what? I maybe I mischaracterized this. No one's gonna fault him. I know we won't, but it doesn't really. It shouldn't take that much to say that you support your cops. We're not like every other city worker that's out there, right? We put our lives on the line every single day we put that uniform on, and all we're asking is for the support of the person who's running the biggest city in the world.
Well, Vincent, thank you so much for coming on, and I agree with you 110%. And let's pray for a better tomorrow. And I've always tried to be optimistic for a better tomorrow. And let's catch up again real soon.
We need more people like you, John.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, Sergeant. Or do I call him Sergeant? Or do I call him President of the Union?
Sergeant Vinny.
They're both.
Sergeant Vinny.
He represents 15,000 current sergeants and retired sergeants.
I love the sergeants. I represented them for 10 years, helping them clean up their union. I got to tell you, sergeants
I like that guy. By the way, I forget his name.
Yep. Eddie Mullins.
Eddie Mullins was I don't know what problem he got into. But he was a terrific person, and I really loved him.
Yep,
you know?
he was. But the sergeants run the world. As a young lieutenant in the Army, I understand it's the sergeants who really know how things work. And whoever your sergeant is, you better be on good terms with them and rely on them.
Yeah, and let me tell you something. The police department, how do I say it the nicest way I can? And it's not negotiable. The police department has to be run by the commissioner, and the fact is that what's the best way to say it, Judge? We say it all the time. Quality of life in New York.
Well, listen,
we cannot negotiate the quality of life in New York, and that's not going to happen.
If you don't have public safety, you don't have quality of life, you don't have law and order, people flee, they vote with their feet, and it's very dangerous. By the way, this so-called kid was 27 years old, had a criminal record. He was out on attempted robbery. He wasn't a kid. He wasn't a kid. This was not a snowball fight. This was an attack. Yeah. It's totally unacceptable.
It was not a fight is when you fight both ways. This was a one-way thing. This was an attack.
And by the way,
a riot, anti-police riot.
And Alvin Bragg, the DA in Manhattan, didn't charge these people with felony assault when he had injuries, substantial injury to police officers who had to go to the hospital for treatment. These people could have been blinded, could have lost an eye because of this. This is serious business.
I support Jessica Tischer. Ed Cox?
Yeah, the most important thing is that the cops be respected. That's why they're a real force in this city, if they're respected. And this was a complete disrespect for the cops.
If police are not free from these kinds of attacks, what about all the rest of us walking down the streets, riding the subways and the buses?
By the way, you know who's calling in now? From Queens, the Queens DA, Melinda Katz. Is she on yet? Sunday morning. Well, New Yorkers, what do they care about the most? Quality of life. With us today is Melinda Katz, and she is the district attorney of the borough of Queens, and she's going to give us an update what the heck is going on in New York, and especially what's going on in Queens. Well, DA Katz, or, we know each other so long, I can call you Melinda. Tell us your experience of what's been going on the last year or so.
Well, good morning, John, and good morning to your listeners. The quality of life in New York City is really important to folks. And as the district attorney of Queens County, I can tell you that violent crimes are down, shootings are down, homicides are down. But at the end of the day, a lot of things that affect everyone in New York City is a lot of this retail theft. And to catch people on the odd, number of of petty larcenies and taking things out of the stores, is a very difficult task to prosecute and very difficult for the police to come and find them all the time. So we put a lot of resources into catching a criminal conspiracy for stealing from Home Depot. There's nothing more frustrating, John, to New Yorkers than standing online to pay their bill after they had to get items from behind a glass case in a retail store. And then someone comes in, fills up a basket or fills up a duffel bag, and walks out the door, and you're still waiting to pay your bill. So at Home Depot, there was this huge ring that was going on. We have a 780-count indictment for stealing for 13 defendants. Over $2.2 million worth of goods from Home Depot were stolen right out of the stores, 128 Home Depot stores. And it was a 319 individual thefts, and it was a few-month investigation. But this ring was coming out of Queens County. They were meeting. They were figuring out what to steal from the website of Home Depot, and they were going in, and everyone else is paying the bill at the register. And so the unfairness of it, I could tell you crime is down in the city of New York, but to you, when you're standing on that line, it's at 100%. So we wanted to make sure that people knew that there was going to be accountability. The leader of the 13 is remanded in jail right now, and most of the others have very high bail. And because we want to make sure that people understand that there is accountability for stealing.
Absolutely. And, we're in the retail business ourselves. We have Catsimatidis and D'Agostino stores in New York City, and we have similar problems. I mean, we have some people that steal from us, and been arrested 50 times, 60 times, 70 times. And it seems like
right.
They never go to jail. I mean, the joke I used to tell D.A. Katz is the fact is you can come in from New Jersey and steal all you want, and if you don't get caught, you go home for dinner. And if you do get caught, you still go home for dinner.
Well, in Queens County, we actually started, in addition to the long-term investigation, to make sure that people knew that there was accountability. Remember, every time you're stealing, it's also on video. And so we used video and surveillance and all of that for the Home Depot one. But we've also instituted in Queens County a trespass affidavit program. And it allows businesses to register for the program, and we have a combination with the police department. And if someone is committing things that are illegal in your store, in your retail store, harassing people, disruptive, dangerous, responding officers with a trespass affidavit will show up. And on their body cam, they will issue what's called a trespass notice that if you return to that particular store, you'll be arrested. And, it's interesting because 2,600 trespass notices have been issued in Queens County, and only 128 people return to that location. And with the people that return to the location, we actually vet them for many things. One is mental health illness, one is drug addiction, workforce development, and all of the things like that to try and make sure they never come back. But the trespass notice has been extremely useful tool for us. It's not the end-all, be-all, but it certainly is a tool that our stores, 446 stores now in Queens County, are utilizing.
That is wonderful news. What else do you want to tell the American people, or all New Yorkers, and especially Queens County?
Well, I think it's important for people to know that we're actively getting the guns off the street and the gangs off the street. We did the largest gang takedown of any single gang in the history of Queens County last month. And I will tell you that what happens when we do that is that we see a noticeable decline of shootings right afterwards. And we've done it several times, taking the gangs off the street. Children should not believe that gangs are their chosen family, and we can't allow that to become the norm. So we do a lot of investigative work, spend resources getting the gangs off the street and the guns off the street. Interestingly enough, with all the ghost guns in the city of New York in last year, we took out the largest percentage of ghost guns in Queens, and it has a real effect on the community and in the neighborhood. First of all, people know that we're watching. And second, getting guns off the street is one more gun that's never going to kill someone or hurt somebody. And it's the right thing to do. And so we continue to do that. In addition to all the other things the office has instituted since I've been the DA, John, it's hard to believe I'm in my 7th year as District Attorney of Queens County. I completed 6 years already. I'm in my 7th year, so we were able to institute a lot of different programs. I do want to issue a warning, if I can, to your listeners also about cannabis. We have, whether one believes that cannabis should be legal or illegal is not really the issue. But when they go to shops that are not legal, we have absolutely no way of vetting the product. I get a lot of calls, John, from people who say, and they sold my child cannabis and they're underage, and the answer is, of course they sold it to them. They're illegal. So we have a huge, policy in this office, and we've been investigating the cannabis shops. We have, hundreds of shops that we have closed and padlocked. And so I just want to issue that warning to people. You don't know what you're buying when you go into an illegal shop.
Well, Melinda Katz, District Attorney of the Borough of Queens, thank you for updating all New Yorkers, and thank you for everything you've done for the last 100 years for all New Yorkers, and we'll catch up again real soon.
I appreciate it. Not 100 years for the record, but thank you very much.
Thank you. Well, thank you, Melinda, again. She is one smart lady. I mean, what do you think of that?
That was all good stuff. It makes me think, where the hell is D.A. Bragg here in Manhattan?
Yeah.
Where is he taking down gangs?
The real problem is when the state legislature and the governor went along with the so-called bail reform, they can't make the arrests and hold people in because shoplifting isn't one of those qualified crimes. And these trespass notices are really the best she can do in a very bad system that has to be changed.
That is a creative DA doing her job.
That's exactly right.
With her hands tied behind her back because of this bail reform nonsense. You've been listening to and continue to listen to, please, a very special live version of the Cats Roundtable here. We are live all morning. We're going to take a break, but don't leave because we have updates from the Iran war and also a lot more great interviews. Coming
up, I understand he texted me. We have Senator Borrello coming on and he's got a lot of things to say about. He's one smart guy. He's got a lot of things to say about
leader in the council.
Of the state senate and what's going on in Albany. Let's take that break.
The Cats Roundtable on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Cats Roundtable on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Well, coming back, and it went silent almost. I mean, are we on?
We're on.
We're on. And let me tell you something. George Borrello, one good guy, and now a friend of mine for 40 years at least, and he's only 39 years old. I mean, he tells me he's 39. And we have Mark Simone, and we're talking about the Friars Club, and I am so upset what happened to the Friars Club. We were members forever, and it was an iconic club in New York. How can they destroy this beautiful institution? Let's go to Mark Simone. The Friars Club, an American icon, especially in New York City, where every actor, every major, Frank Sinatra, everybody was there. And with us today is Mark Simone, another American icon of radio and television, works at WOR and with the Mark Simone Show, works with Larry Kudlow on Fox Business, and a member of the board of the Friars Club. Well, Mark Simone, what the heck happened? Can you tell this to everybody?
Yeah, it was the most beautiful private club. You know, New York has the greatest private clubs, the Metropolitan Club, the University Club, and they're kind of, stuffy, old school. Friars Club, as you say, was Frank Sinatra was the president. It had everybody you could imagine. Milton Berle, George Burns. Jimmy Fallon joined the Friars Club because he idolized Johnny Carson, and Johnny Carson was in the Friars Club. And he was in it because his idol was Jack Benny, and he was in the Friars Club. And of course, everybody knows the Friars Club roast, and it was that dining room was the most fun thing in the world. It was all great comedians and comedy writers, and it flourished for 110 years, 115 years. But then it fell into the wrong hands, and the wrong people rose up and took over, and all the great people on the board, like you and others, all left. And they were the worst people to run the club. The proof is, after they ran the club for a couple of months, it was gone, completely gone. They lost the building, lost the name, and it doesn't exist anymore. Very sad.
Very, very sad. And now you have some new revelations. We talked the other night, and all of a sudden you found on the website. Tell all our listeners what you found on the website.
Yeah, the clubhouse was a beautiful old townhouse on 55th Street, and the walls of the Friars Club had the most beautiful memorabilia, pictures of everybody in show business, autograph pictures and portraits and busts of Sinatra and Ed Sullivan, and just very, very valuable memorabilia all over the walls. All of a sudden, people are sending me this auction house in California is auctioning off all of this memorabilia, everything that was on the walls, everything that was in the Friars Club. Now, I don't know who has the authority to auction this off. As I say, the club closed, went out of business, it's gone, and it ended badly.
And I understand some hedge fund had the mortgage on it and foreclosed on the entire building. You think it's them that's selling it?
It could be, yeah. It was one of those mortgage companies. They seized the building, and but I forgot to mention, at the end of this awful run of the Friars Club, the bad people at the end, U.S. Attorney's Office came in. They raided the place. People were indicted in this thing. So I don't know who took all the memorabilia and who put it up for auction. I don't know who has the authority to do that. I would assume it belongs to the members of the club, not a former employee or a former member. So we don't know who's auctioning it off.
Well, would it be part of the building, or did it belong to the old members?
Well, I know you're the real estate expert. If somebody took possession of the building, a mortgage company or something, don't they have the rights to the contents if they're still there?
It's possible, but I think we should look into it.
Yeah, and the people who screwed up this club at the end, I don't think they would have left that stuff in the building. If they had abandoned the building, I'm sure they took the stuff with them, and we don't know who put it up for auction. But I don't know how that auction house verified the ownership of this stuff to auction it off.
Now, some U.S. attorney a few years ago indicted some of the individuals. Do you remember the name of the U.S. attorney that indicted those individuals?
Yeah, well, it was a couple. It was Preet Bharara, and then the case was finally done by a great U.S. attorney. Jeffrey Berman was his name, Jeffrey Berman. But they raided the club. People left there in handcuffs. It was quite an episode. I mean, all the great members were gone by then. All the top people on the board, like yourself, had left. They didn't want to be involved with the bad people. But it was just the saddest story. Somebody should do a book about this whole thing and just create a record of what happened there.
And so the website, there's a website out of California with everything that was on the walls. I looked at the website the other day, and they even had Jack Benny's violin.
Yeah, well, nobody's sure if it was Jack Benny's violin. Again, some of these people run in the club at the end. Who knows? I think it's called Lawrence Auction House, and it's an auction house in Beverly Hills. And they specialize in comedy stuff, things from comedians. If you Google Friars Club auction, I'm sure it'll come up. And there's a lot of people bidding on it. Even the pool table is up for auction. That pool table was originally owned by Milton Berle. He had donated it to the club, and the most famous people in the world use that pool table. But it's so sad. I mean, if Frank Sinatra, Johnny Carson, all the people that ran that club were alive, they would be crying right now looking at this.
Well, I'm crying because I remember sitting there for lunches and dinners, and it was a beautiful, iconic club, and for it to go down like that, it's very, very sad.
Yeah, it was just a horrible. It was a slow death. It was like a year or two or three. The building is still sitting there on 55th Street, totally empty, and I think it's in the hands of the mortgage company. I think it's up for sale if somebody wants to buy it. But they lost the building. They lost the rights to the name of the Friars Club, and everything was lost after 110 years.
You're one smart guy, and you stay on top of these things. Will you please come back and when we check into some of these items, and let's give all our listeners a follow-up?
Definitely.
Well, thank you so much for coming on this Sunday morning, and we'll catch up again real soon.
Thanks for having me.
Mark Simone, one smart guy, one good friend, and it's tragic what happened to the Friars Club. And let me tell you something, it's I got tears in my eyes because we had so many good times. I understand, there's changes in the Staten Island team, the Ferry Hawks, and let's go to Gary Perone right now. It's only a couple of we'll take a couple of minutes for him. Sunday morning. What's happening in Staten Island? What's happening with the Ferry Hawks? Well, besides the fact that I'm the new chairman, president, and CEO, with us today is Gary Perone, who serves as executive vice president and general manager. And Gary, you're there day to day. You're there all the time. Give us a report. What the heck is going to happen, and what are we going to do to improve things?
Well, John, first and foremost, we're very excited. Everyone on Staten Island is very excited that you're here with us, and we love it, and we thank you, and we look forward to doing some amazing work for the borough of Staten Island. Right now, we're gearing up for the season. It's been a long off season for us as we're getting the ballpark prepared. We'll open up the ballpark hopefully on April 24th as we kick off another season here. But we're going to have a lot of fun this year. We have a great promotional lineup set up. We're really focusing in on our New York City, all the anniversaries this year that are happening, the 250th anniversary, the 25th anniversary of 9/11, and the venue this year is going to be really put on spotlight because of FIFA and everything happening in New York City. So the venue itself, we play baseball here, but we are an entertainment center. We have a lot of great events coming up. With FIFA coming, we'll be hosting the FDNY 25th anniversary. And so a lot of good things happening, and we're very, very excited right now.
And I understand that we're going to be bringing in soccer besides baseball.
Yes, so soccer is in New York City now, and it's prevalent and it's here. Our venue is beautiful, and the other day I had a walkthrough with some people from the city, and I showed them the skyline, John, and I told them, I said, we are the New York City venue. Look at the skyline. We're going to do a lot of great things here, and soccer is one of them, so we're very excited about that too.
Well, what else can you tell about all the good things happening in Staten Island? Well,
the great things that are happening in Staten Island right now, I feel, and one of the things great for people around New York City, the New York City Fast Ferry is a new addition to, Staten Island and to New York City. And we'll be able to travel, we'll get people from Brooklyn, from Manhattan to Staten Island now. And like I like to call this, John, this is the three corners that we've touched in life, which is you start in Brooklyn, sometimes you move to Manhattan, and then you go to Staten Island just like you did, which is great, and we thank you. And doing all this here gives all the fans in New York City a way of getting to the ballpark easier. That's one way of doing it. The Staten Island train system, we're working with them now to do a fan car to get more people here easier, and it's going to be a great summer. It really will.
Understood. Well, Gary Perrone, thank you so much for coming on, and keep us informed so we can tell all the listeners and all the fans, and go Ferry Hawks, go Hawks, and God bless, and thank you so much.
No, thank you, John. We really appreciate it.
Well, I just love baseball. I look,
I tell you, minor league baseball is the most fun. You get close to the players, you identify with them. It's many ways more fun than going to a major league game.
I had to temporarily take over as president because Eric Schiffler, who's a very fine person, he just I think he's got too many responsibilities with the new governor in New Jersey, and he's a lobbyist there, and he's a businessman there, and we're going to miss him. He's a nice person.
It's great that soccer is also coming to New York City.
We're trying to get soccer into that stadium if the Economic Development Corporation agrees to it, because they really own the stadium, and we'll see what happens. And now, one of the greatest governors we ever had in New York State. One of the greatest. He was one great governor. Governor Pataki, I understand, he just texted me that he's calling in. Is Governor on? Sunday morning. Well, with us today is Governor George Pataki, one of the greatest governors that, New York State has ever had. Governor, thank you for calling in this Sunday morning. What's on your mind, and how can we maintain common sense in our city, our state, our country?
Well, John, first of all, it's always great being on with you, and what you've done with ABC is incredible. So thank you, and thank you for having me on. I'll tell you what has me upset. It's just the attitude of a lot of our elites, including the media and the government, towards our police. They talk about a snowball fight where the police had snowballs thrown at them. That's not the case. This was an assault upon New York City police officers where they threw, yes, snowballs, but also rocks and ice. And it was a deliberate assault on New York police officers in uniform. And yet our city and our state are doing nothing. They decided not to prosecute the people who were involved in this. And it just is a part of a continuing decline in the quality of life and support for the police that we see in this city.
Well, I mean, I agree with you 100%. They described it as a fight, but it was really not a fight. I mean, because all the snowballs were being thrown at the police officers, and the police officers were given restrictions that they couldn't do anything about it.
Exactly. I mean, I've been when I was a kid, I was in snowball fights. So you throw them at each other. But this was an assault upon police officers who were not allowed to fight back. And the district attorney Bragg, Mondami, and the rest say, let him go. It's not a big deal. Well, it is a big deal. And when you look at New York City, it is the greatest place in the world, but the quality of life is falling. We don't have the respect for the police, and the police have the hardest job in the world, and this is just another example. We have mentally ill people, obviously mentally ill, on the streets, in the subways, harassing people, and the government does nothing about it. And I just saw a recent poll, and I don't believe a whole lot in polls, but it was a statewide poll where 1 out of every 3 people resident of New York State are seriously considering leaving. It's too expensive. It's too complicated, over-regulated. Crime is still too high, and we don't have the quality of life that we should.
I agree with you because I've said that when I was on television last week. I said the most important thing in New York that's not negotiable is the quality of life. And I worry about my employees in our city. I worry about the shoplifting that nobody does anything about it. We got to a point where there's nobody goes to jail.
You're absolutely right. I mean, that's just another symbol of how the quality of life for all New Yorkers is in serious decline. Shoplifting is a crime. And yet we have prosecutors and we have a government in Albany that refuses to do anything about it. When you go into a drugstore, the things you want to buy are locked up. Not highly expensive $100 electric razors or something, but cheap things.
The Cats Roundtable on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Cats Roundtable, entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Good morning, America. This is the Cats Roundtable. John Catsimatidis here. We have Lynn Shaw, worried about our kids. Dr. Peter Mihalos, live long and prosper. Kathy Brenner. We have Ambassador James Gilmore, who was the Republican National Chairman, was also the governor of Virginia. What the heck happened in Virginia? Hank Sheinkoff, Democratic Party. Is it going to be socialist or is it going to be common sense? Ty McCoy, what's going on in the world as far as our military? Representative Byron Douglas, Pierre Yared, and he is the economic chief reporting to President Trump. Ryan Zinke, the only congressman in Montana, and Sean Spicer. Let's start off with Bill O'Reilly to see what's going on in the country. What's our country coming to? What's going on in the world? Nobody better than Bill O'Reilly.
Things are a little turbulent in America right now. There's uncertainty about the economy, as everybody knows. And Iran's situation is looming, which will have unintended consequences for all of us. Very intense when you're taking out a country of that size. It's not like Venezuela or Cuba or one of the small places that can tip fast. But I do expect the Trump administration to launch some kind of action against Iran. Not troops on the ground, but concentrated bombings of military targets there. I think we're doing the right thing in most areas. So let's hold on to that until things develop.
There's so much conflict between Republicans and Democrats. I mean, has the world ever been so, in our country been so divided ever?
Yeah, Civil War, it was worse with the slavery issue and the economic, interestingly enough, tariff issues that the South despised the tariffs because they were instituted to protect northern merchants, and the South had to raise products for food. And most people don't understand that, but there's a lot of hatred, rank hatred, between the North and the South. Then in the Vietnam era, there was a real anger from the left about the war and the death and destruction it was causing. And it was legitimate anger. when you look back upon what happened during the Vietnam era. But now we have a whole different situation. We have a split Democratic Party. The traditional Democrats, they want liberal institutions, they want liberal policies, generosity, welfare, large spending. But the radicals in the Democratic Party, which control the money flow right now, they want a whole new country. Conservative, traditional Republican people understand that a Mamdani isn't in business to bring anybody together in New York City. He wants to break the capitalistic system in the city. And that is causing an enormous amount of anger, and it is yet to be fully realized, I believe.
Bill O'Reilly, I want to thank you for coming on and breaking bread with me and talking about our country, and we should talk some more because we need common sense to prevail.
Thanks for having me on the Roundtable, John.
The Cats Roundtable.
There's an important race this year, and it's for the governor of Florida. Ron DeSantis has done a great job for the last 8 years, but he's term limited. So President Trump has a designee. He was Congressman Byron Donalds. And, Congressman, tell us, Florida has been doing great. I mean, you've gone up to almost 24 million people. You kept the budget low. Can we keep it going?
Absolutely, we can, and it's good to be with you. Florida is the best state in the country. That's why people continue to choose our state every single day. But there's some core principles that are going to be maintained in Florida. Number one, a commitment to law and order. That is going to remain. Number two, common sense and smart budgeting, where we're not going to just spend money recklessly and live beyond our means. We're not going to do that. We're going to do the smart thing on behalf of the people of Florida. And number three, and most importantly, we are going to be a state based upon common sense and conservative principles. That's how Governor DeSantis has governed. That's how I'm going to govern. And we're really excited about the future of our state.
And quality of life. I think that's a lot of New Yorkers that are moving down to Florida is because the quality of life.
Quality of life is paramount in Florida. We have a great state. And so even though more people are going to choose Florida, we're going to make sure that we protect the Florida that everybody's come to know while also preparing for Florida's future. You know, when you get more people coming to your state, you got to plan. So we are going to have to plan how we expand the roads that we need to expand. The roads we need to expand, we're going to plan for how we're going to build the future housing, not just for young people in the state of Florida trying to get that first home, but for the other people who are going to choose Florida to be their home. But we're going to do this working together, and we're really excited about the prospects. There's a lot of efficiency in government that we'll be working on going forward. We got to cut down government waste, cut down government processing times. We want to make sure that Florida's government is moving at the speed of business, not at the speed of government. That's what's going to continue to set us apart from the other 49 states.
A lot of people in New York are trying to decide, do I stay in New York or do I go to Florida? What do you tell them?
Listen, I tell them that Florida is a great place, but when you come here, you got to make sure that you come here and support the values that have made Florida what it is. You know, back during COVID, there was concern. We had a lot of people from New York, New Jersey, from the Midwest who were coming to Florida, and some of the concern was that they were going to still vote Democrat even though they were coming here. And what we found is that when people are sick of crazy politics in New York and in New Jersey, they come to Florida and they want to keep this place exactly the way it is. Well, I would tell future New Yorkers who may come down, Florida is Florida based upon common sense and conservatism. That's the way we operate. That's the way we govern. That's going to maintain. And if you want to support that, then there's a spot for you in Florida.
Congressman Byron Donalds, thank you so much for coming on, and see you soon.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Everybody, God bless.
Thank you for listening to the Cats Roundtable. We'll be right back right after this break.
The Cats Roundtable on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Cats Roundtable, entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome back to the Cats Roundtable. With us today is Dr. Peter Michalos. Live long and prosper. Well, Dr. Michalos, what do you have in mind today?
Well, today, John, we're going to talk about a really exciting topic. The master control center in our lives is our brain. And we've all often talked about the modifiable risk factors of keeping your brain healthy, like Mediterranean diet, social engagement, don't smoke, limiting alcohol, trying to sleep 8 hours, and walking, swimming, because they don't beat up your joints but keeps the blood flow in your brain going, eating green leafy vegetables because that boosts our nitric oxide, which helps keep blood flow to our brain better, controlling the high blood pressure, eating berries, nuts, fish oil, olive oil, and, trying to stick to lean proteins and really trying to avoid red meat and sugar and avoiding processed foods. But one of the things that's also modifiable, which turns out to be very important, is the oral microbiome. And I had a discussion with leading prosthodontist Robert Ciccarelli and periodontist Adam Baer, and the discussion was about finding that in the oral microbiome there's a bacteria called P. gingivalis that they found, and it also produces a toxin called gingipains. And they found that 90 to 100% of the brains with Alzheimer's disease had this gingipain toxins in there, and that the spinal taps sometimes done on Alzheimer's patients, they found this P. gingivalis bacteria. So it turns out that keeping the dental plaque away from your teeth and minimizing the bad bacteria helps to prevent Alzheimer's disease, because there seems to be a mouth-brain axis where these bacteria, through gum disease, especially gums that are bleeding, get into the bloodstream, and it passes the blood-brain barrier, gets in the brain, causes inflammation, and makes up these things called amyloid plaques, which are associated with Alzheimer's.
If you take care of yourself better, whatever you had from the previous, does it go away slowly?
Yeah, because you have less inflammation. Because if you have less bacteria, your body, it does not have as much neuroinflammation. And that's one of the other things is using like a prebiotic toothpaste, which feeds the good bacteria. That also may play a role in keeping your oral microbiome. And it generates gases that come out of our gut and our mouth. And in the future, there's even a company doing a test where they analyze the breath. Rua Diagnostics has this breath scan they're developing, and it'll actually, you puff into it, and it's going to tell you what good bacteria, bad bacteria, gases are coming out to even diagnose certain bacterial overgrowth, and that's the future of medicine. And then another very exciting area, I had a discussion with one of the top neurosurgeons in the country, Dimitri Sagunas at George Washington University in Washington, D.C. What they're finding is that the brain also can get other problems like aneurysms, AV malformation, which is an abnormal tuft of blood vessels. And one of the big topics now is neuroendovascular surgery, where if you get a brain bleed, these things called chronic hematoma, that affects 17 out of 100,000 people in the United States, and it affects about 100 people, 100 out of 100,000 of people over 65 to 80 years old, and they get these recurrent bleeds in the brain. In the old days, you had to go with surgery, crack the skull and get in, but now they go through your arm or your leg with these endovascular techniques, and they can actually find this spot that's bleeding, and one of the common ones is called the middle meningeal artery, and they shoot in this foam, and they can actually stop the bleeding without even having to go to the operating room, which is quite amazing. And they're finding that the incidence of these brain bleeds called subdural hematomas is increasing in the United States. Why? Because so many people are taking blood thinners for a lot of different conditions and heart conditions, and that increases your risk of brain bleed. So, of course, wearing a helmet if you're doing bicycling, motorcycling, very important. And even if you're walking out in the ice, just wearing one of those regular hats or wool hats that's a little thicker gives you some protection if, God forbid, you have a fall and you hit and injure your head. And, of course, wearing your seatbelt and having a good car that has a 5-star crash rating on both front and side protection is extremely important. And the other very fascinating thing they found is the AREDS formula, which is plant-based pigments, lutein, zeaxanthin, vitamin C, zinc, and copper, which is a vitamin called the AREDS formula. People who took that had 25% macular degeneration, and they found that taking those vitamins also helped improve the gut microbiome, increase the diversity, and those people had less macular degeneration. And the eye is an extension of the brain, so it probably helps the brain as well. So having a diet, a good diet, and fasting, as we've talked about, helps you heal and repair. Eating fish, legumes, which are lentils and peas, all those things turn out to be good for the eye, good for the brain. So these are things you can do to protect your eye and your brain, and you continue to get a greater chance of living to be 100.
Thank you so much, Dr. Peter Michalos, and
thank you for always getting the truth out and getting all the front information in medicine.
With us today is Pierre Yared, currently serves as the acting chairman of the Council of Economic Advisors. Well, Pierre, can you give us a background of how you think the economy did in 2025, and what are your thoughts about 2026?
Thanks for having me on, John. If you really look at it, the economy overperformed relative to all forecasts that we had, both before the president was elected and right after. And in particular, if you look at the growth of GDP, the growth of incomes, the growth of money in everybody's pockets, that grew much faster than anyone could imagine. That happened while the president was fixing a lot of the budgetary problems that we inherited, because when you think about it, the Biden administration left us with a fiscal mess, and through a set of policies involving tax cuts, tariffs, and deregulation, and in particular on energy, the president has been able to deliver supply-side growth combined with disinflation. Inflation has been coming down, and more money in everybody's pockets, because when you look at people's wages adjusted for inflation have been growing. They dropped by around $3,000 during the Biden administration, and they're up over $1,000 under President Trump. And so it looks very good, and I'm very optimistic about 2026.
President Trump has been advertising and talking about there's $18 trillion in new deals coming to America. So at a certain point, the manufacturing is just going to take off.
Well, one way you can track that right now is by looking at the activity in non-residential construction, as well as the jobs in non-residential construction, which have been rising rapidly over the past few months. And so we're already seeing a lot of groundbreakings. We're already seeing a lot of imports of capital goods, because, you need to import some of those materials from other countries if we're going to be building here. And as that manifests itself, we should be seeing an increase in manufacturing jobs. And what we have seen for sure in 2025 is an increase in manufacturing activity. When you look at various measures of industrial production, for example, those have been very healthy, very high. If you look at manufacturing wages, those have actually grown faster than the average wages, the average weekly wages. And in particular, they're even faster for the non-supervisory employees relative to the supervisors in manufacturing. So those manufacturing jobs are becoming better jobs. And that's compared to under the Biden administration, where those wages were actually going down in manufacturing. So manufacturing wages are up, and that's in part because of a productivity boom, because we're in fact able to get more out of all of our workers, because President Trump is delivering on that promise of delivering a golden age for America.
Pierre Yared, thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks for having me, John.
Thank you for listening to the Cats Roundtable. We'll be right back right after this break.
The Cats Roundtable on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Cats Roundtable on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome back to the Cats Roundtable. If you ever miss a segment or want to hear it again, go to WABCRadio.com, go to podcasts, go to minicast, and play back your favorite segment. with us today is Ty McCoy, and he's the former Assistant Secretary of the Air Force. Ty, what do you want to tell the American people?
Well, John, we're in a great deal of negotiation. As Churchill said, there's always war, and talk. And we have both of those going on right now in Ukraine and in Israel, where we have in Geneva the two main negotiators for the president, his son-in-law, Jared Kushner, and his friend Steve Witkoff, are in one hotel talking to the Ukrainians and the Russians, trying to make progress there. And then they go rush across town to sit down with the Iranians and talk about the nuclear program in Iran and trying to reach some kind of deal where this huge buildup of U.S. forces in the area around Iran can be pulled back, or if there's not an agreement, then those forces can either engage in an attack or stand by in support of the Israelis, who are likely to counterattack soon. They report that 180 Iranian missiles have come in and been fired at Israel a short time ago. Most of the missiles did not get through. They were stopped by the combination of layered defenses that the Israelis had. The Iranians did not attack U.S. forces. They did not attack U.S. bases. They did not attack U.S. allies. They attacked Israel. And so I think they're trying to engage and escalate as these talks are going on, escalate to then de-escalate, which is a theory of the Russians strategic thinkers have as a way to show strength before they have to give up something. In the case of the Iranians, the U.S. continues to talk there. The Israelis, of course, are not at the table in those negotiations, but they're players, as are everybody else who wants to prevent Iran from getting a nuclear weapon and having a large nuclear forces. They do have large missile forces, and that is a big problem. And so part of the negotiation is for a cutback on not only the nuclear program in Iran, but also the missile program, and also a lot better behavior and not funding the Iranian proxy forces that are attacking throughout the region, Hezbollah, Houthis in Yemen, and Hamas. So that negotiation goes on. I suspect the Israelis will attack in the next 24 to 72 hours, probably at night, using F-35, using drones, and go in and take out some facilities. They probably won't attack oil facilities or economic facilities. They'll be after IRGC, secret police headquarters. They'll be after missile sites. They may reattack some of the nuclear sites that were previously attacked by American B-2 bombers. Up in Ukraine, those negotiations go on. Also, there's more or less a stalemate in Ukraine. Both sides have gone into the new era, a new doctrine of war, drone warfare, including ground drones that are managed with the internet and Starlink to hold the front and use less infantry. So the previous situation in war where you would have close air support with aircraft supporting infantry, now in many cases we're seeing drones take over not only the war in the air along the battle line, but also beginning more and more to be an aid to the infantry and to the armor forces.
Do they have anything at all, whether it's Russian or Chinese or their own, that could hurt any of our armed forces or hurt any of our naval forces?
The Iranians have missiles that can attack our naval forces, our destroyers, our aircraft carriers. Not very successfully, we don't think. We think we have a pretty strong defenses around those forces. But some could get through, and some in the past where they have attacked some of our bases that are large bases in the Allied region, the allies in the area, in Qatar and in Saudi Arabia, and some Americans have been injured. They have the capability to do that. They may do that if they see U.S. forces doing too much in attacks on Iran. Initially, I think the Israelis will counterattack the Iranians, will provide indirect support in the way of intelligence, radar, logistics, and so forth, and try to stay out of a direct attack so that it is a controlled escalation and then hopefully a controlled de-escalation while negotiations continue As Churchill said, the negotiations are ongoing, and each side is trying to position themselves on the ground so they have a better negotiating
Understood.
hand.
Understood. Ty McCoy, former Assistant Secretary of the Air Force, thank you so much, and we'll catch up again real soon.
Sounds good. Thank you. Good to be with you.
The Cats Roundtable.
With us today is Ambassador James Gilmore. He's been a governor, he's been an ambassador, and he was a chairman of the Republican National Committee. Now, you were the 68th governor of Virginia. The Republican Party lost Virginia by 14 points. The current governor there, it turns out that she's more left-wing than not. What happened in Virginia?
Well, look, in Virginia, this was a wave election that occurred in Virginia. Not only did we lose the governorship, we lost both the lieutenant governor and attorney general positions, and the Democrats rode into a 2-1 majority in the House of Delegates, the lower house of our legislature. The answer to your question, though, is that in Virginia, with Northern Virginia votes around Washington, Virginia is going to go Democrat unless the statewide ticket, the statewide candidate for governor has an issue. And if you have an issue that the people of Northern Virginia and the rest of Virginia can adhere to, then the Republican can win. Youngkin won on education issues. I won on a car tax cut. There were other Republicans who have won statewide, and you can still do that. But Winsome Sears, who was our candidate, never really settled on a message. So there was really nothing going on there. And meanwhile, in Northern Virginia, they were experiencing layoffs of all the federal workers by the Trump administration. They were seeing a shutdown, which the Republicans have asserted is a Democrat shutdown, but at that time that was not persuasive. They had all that going on, and this was clearly a wave election against the Republicans nationally and especially in Virginia.
Is it a wave all over our country, or is it just a situation in Virginia?
Well, it looks that way, and Virginia always goes on the off-year election first. So we're a warning shot as to what may come in this coming November. To your other point, John, you asked about the Democrats. She'd been in the United States Congress. She ran as a moderate. She always called herself a moderate. She never offered any positions that indicated she was a moderate, and now that she is the governor, she's quite left-wing. So there are a lot of crazy things going on right now while the legislature is in session in Richmond, and she's endorsing all of it.
And you also have an attorney general that's not exactly for law and order.
He was a person who had been convicted of a number of issues, and I thought, frankly, the Republican incumbent was a shoo-in. But once again, the entire Democratic ticket was pulled in by the 14-point disparity in the statewide race.
Anything in particular we should be doing now, or the Republican Party should be doing?
Look, I think that it's good old-fashioned politics. You have to address the traditional Republican issues that I espouse. You have to talk about tax cuts. And in Richmond right now, they're raising taxes, contrary to what they said they were going to do. But nationwide, I think we have to talk about cutting taxes in order to put more money back in the pockets of working men and women in the country. And if you do that, and if you have good international relations, now this is not to say that we have to be subservient to allies or to other countries. In fact, I'm against that. I believe in American sovereignty. But this is a global world that we're living in. As ambassador to an organization in Vienna, Austria, with 57 countries, it came home to me. Furthermore, that organization contained both the Russians and the Ukrainians. So we now have a European war that's raging right now, which I consider to be the pivotal question for the 21st century. But Republicans can espouse the correct things here, good, solid working with our allies, good domestic policy at home, particularly on the pocketbook issues, and we can do fine. If we don't do that, I think we're going to be headed for a very bad election this coming November.
Ambassador James Gilmore, thank you so much for coming on, and let's catch up again real soon.
Thank you, John. I appreciate your leadership in the state of New York.
Thank you for listening to the Cats Roundtable. We'll be right back right after this break.
The Cats Roundtable on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Cats Roundtable, entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome back to the Cats Roundtable. What does Lynn Shaw have in mind this week? Lynn's Warriors. How do we protect our children this week, Lynn?
We're confronting a difficult but necessary truth. Social media and gaming platforms have exposed kids to all kinds of levels of risk. Digital platforms, they're engineered, we know this, by big tech to capture the kids' attention and monetize their vulnerabilities, right, those young developing brains. But there's another part of the story, and that is, over the decades, I've been doing a lot of research. I've pulled up a lot of studies. Some new ones are coming out that are great. You can find those on linswarriors.org. That parenting itself has shifted from more kind of a structured, a little bit more authority. I know people don't like that word, but a little more authority, in the past, to more of this permissive kind of behavior. So in that vacuum, big tech in the last 30 years, because basically it was born in 1996, they call that kind of the birth of the internet, big tech moved in, all these platforms. Now we have the results that we're hearing about, luckily, in more media today, of a generation, all these kids, Gen Zs, 30 and under, born in this digital bubble, raised, John, more by algorithms than by their parents and any kind of structure and boundaries. I think it's very important to confront, and we're not judging, we're not blaming, but it's time for all of us to realistically talk about this. We want to protect kids online, and we want to advance solutions. This is where we're at. People hear government. They hear when I talk about, we've got a great bipartisan bill right now, Kids Online Safety Act. They go crazy. They think it's, impeding on their First Amendment rights. What about all the kids? When we've come to the point we are, and it's very critical and crucial right now and desperate, what's happening to kids online, right? It's a runaway train. Big tech is not being held accountable, okay? Then we've got to have some sort of federal legislation. And the Kids Online Safety Act, again, it just prevents big tech from feeding these algorithms to kids. Kids are not searching for something, and all of a sudden they got porn that's coming over their computer. It is done by design. So I feel like, John, we're really going to go into the direction of what Australia is doing in other countries. We are going to have something like no social media 16 and under. But we have to get back to talking about the parents, because without boundaries at home, and we've mentioned this, John, before, sort of, platforms gain more power. And we know in the last 30 years that priority in parenting, like with the kids and really structuring and mentoring more, it has fallen, according to a new study, 42%. That's a big thing. Kids are responsive. They love structure. That helps them, and they thrive. People try to fight about that. We've got these studies that tell us. We have kids today spending 5 to 9 hours a day online, and a lot of kids even exceed that. I don't know how they sleep, eat, go to school, whatever, if they're spending that amount online. So we've got to talk about what parents can do. They have to be at the forefront to fight for education and awareness about this, go to their, elected officials and talk about this. They have to do this. We have to step up. It's no longer just sitting on the sidelines. There's so many good things that people can do. Reassert authority at home. We got to start doing something, because we are at critical mass. It is a crisis with our kids in the United States. Also, we rally for Congress to pass the bipartisan Kids Online Safety Act. We want tech platforms to be held accountable. And we also want boundaries and delaying social media.
Lynn Shaw, thank you for being an advocate. Thank you for caring about all the kids in America. And let's catch up again real soon.
Thanks, John, for always showcasing us and giving us a platform. linswarriors.org.
The Cats Roundtable.
And with us today is Kathy Benner, and she's the director of the American Bald Eagle Foundation. Give us the good news about the American Bald Eagles.
It is an amazing story, the recovery of the bald eagle ever since 1972, when they put the ban on DDT. Back then, we had just 417 known nesting pairs in the lower 48. And as of today, we are looking at over 300,000 bald eagles. Yes.
And where are you located? You're located all the way up in Alaska?
Yes, we are in Haines, Alaska, which is a very small community just north of Juneau, which is our capital.
And you specialize in bald eagles and monitoring them. Tell us what you do.
So here at the American Bald Eagle Foundation, we have a natural history museum and also a raptor center where we house 7 birds, and 3 of those are non-releasable bald eagles. So these eagles were injured and can never go back into the wild, and we have them here. They educate the public. We get people here from all over the world that want to visit the Chilkat Valley, which is the valley that we live in. We also do rescues, so we have eagles that get injured here in the Chilkat Valley, and we go out and we rescue them and get them to where they need to go to get help.
So the only thing you deal with is bald eagles. Is there any other kind of animals you deal with?
Oh, we actually will take in any kind of bird. So any wild bird that gets injured here, we have 2 owls, a red-tailed hawk, and an American kestrel that also are here as our ambassador educators. And these birds are also non-releasable. But if we get a call about even a raven or a hummingbird, we go and rescue it.
Do you have a website?
We do. Our website is baldeagles.org.
And
bald eagles are amazing animals.
Well, Kathy Brenner, the American Bald Eagle Foundation, give us that website again.
It is baldeagles.org.
Thank you so much, and let's catch up again soon.
Yes, wonderful. Thank you so much, John.
Sean Spicer, who was the 30th White House press secretary and worked for President Trump 45. Well, Sean, you have a show right after the Cats Roundtable, so nobody hang up. He's got one great show coming. Give us your mission in life, because my mission is to have common sense in America. What's your mission?
Well, first of all, thank you for, I love what you have created, and I'm honored to be part of it. You have taken this enormous success that you have done in life and in business and turned it into a mission, and I'm honored to be part of your continued dream. It really means a lot. I've been on your show before. I thank you again for this opportunity. I'm honored to be part of it. And look, simply put, I think you and I share the same mission in life, to make sure that this country continues in the right direction, that we pursue policies that are going to allow us to be safer and more prosperous. But part of what I really hope to do, John, and on Sunday mornings with your audience here, is to really help use the experience that I've gained. I started doing my first campaign in 1994, just over 30 years ago, 27 years in the military. I've worked in the White House, the RNC, 10 different members of Congress, various campaigns, is to bring people in, especially this year, in an election year, to bring them inside what decision makers are doing and why they're doing it. There's a ton of pundits on television that opine on, and that's great. That's the beauty of America. But part of what I want people to do is maybe have a better understanding of the process, why decisions are getting made, what's happening at critical junctures during the campaign season. So as we sprint towards November, I hope that we give your whole audience a better understanding of how they can be helpful, how we can support President Trump and the mission, and understand why things are happening and what we can do to be supportive of them.
You're absolutely right, and we both have the same mission, that we have common sense in America. I have 2 children and 1 grandchild, and I want to make sure that they grow up in an America that I grew up in, and common sense should prevail.
100%, and I think the more people understand the process and what they're being told, sometimes in a very liberal legacy media, why it's not true, what's happening. It frustrates me, and I love having an outlet and being able to talk to listeners and give them the straight truth about why things are happening, what's really going on, how they can affect change. So I'm super, super excited to be kicking this off.
Well, Sean, I'm going to be listening. You come on right after the Cats Roundtable between 10 and 11.
What a lead-in that is. You're setting me up so, of all of the hosts, I get to come right in. This is going to be awesome. This is the kind of lead-in that any host would ever want.
Well, I'm looking forward to listening. Everybody, all our audience, stay tuned. You got one great show coming on right after us.
The Cats Roundtable.
If you ever miss a segment or want to hear it again, go to WABCRadio.com, go to podcasts, go to minicast, and play back your favorite segment. Thank you for listening to the Cats Roundtable. Every Sunday morning, we'll bring you the latest in what's happening in our community, our country, and the world. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Have a nice Sunday.
Thanks for listening to the Cats Roundtable with John Catsimatidis. You can hear the Cats Roundtable Sunday mornings at 8. If you like the podcast, share it with your friends and listen anytime at WABCRadio.com and download the WABC Radio app. Hit that subscribe button on all major podcast platforms. Plus, follow WABC on social on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and X. See you next time for a new episode so you never have to wonder,
what the heck is going on here?